Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Comic Book Chronicles. And as I fix this here, as I fix my image here, I am your host, Roddykat, and you can find me at Roddykat on Twitter. You can find me at News Knows Need on Twitter. You can find me at CBCaps on Instagram.
Columbia down the way.
There we go. And the sound effects that you have just heard come from none other than our man in Brooklyn, one agent_70 on Twitter and Instagram.
What's up, everybody?
Tim's for my hooligans in Brooklyn.
Nice. This here is the Comic Book Chronicles, and you can find this here podcast on the Coleslaw the Podcast Network. That's CSPN.us.
Do it today.
You could also find us on your podcast perusal place of choice, whether it be Google Play, Apple iTunes, Apple Podcasts, aka all that what I just said, SoundCloud, and the Coastal Podcast Network SoundCloud page, and I'm already watching this already up. I think I said Spotify.
Just make sure to like and subscribe and leave us 5-star reviews.
There we go. Yeah. And of course, we record every Thursday night, 9:30-ish p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the YouTube channel of the Kliq Nation. That's youtube.com/the Kliq Nation, and also twitch.tv/Comic Book Chronicles.
Again, remember to hit like and smash that subscribe button and leave us good reviews. Thank you.
Indeed. And we start the show off tonight with a recap of Star Wars, the Book of Boba Fett, episode 6, the penultimate episode.
Yes, the episode is titled From the Desert Comes a Stranger, and there is a very specific scene in this episode that is a reference, that the title is a reference for.
Yeah, and apparently it has as some other people are taking it, there's also another meaning for it also in a way, but yeah, but that one's definitely the pinpoint right there. So, but we'll get into that in a second, because so it starts off with I'll let Agent 70 start this off, but we start off by catching up with a character from The Mandalorian, which Agent 70 calls Cobb with the good hair.
Cobb Vanth with the good hair.
Exactly. Who we were joking before the show was like, yeah, clearly we like, I don't know where he's getting his conditioner from on a desert planet, but he's got some good hair practices going on.
Right, because listen, our introduction to him was when we discovered him wearing the Boba Fett armor, including helmet. And he took off his helmet when the Mandalorian confronted him about the origins of the armor, and he took off his helmet in a bar in Mos Pelgo, and his hair was like mad smooth still. Right. Obviously it's a Hollywood trick, but he literally just had the helmet put on, so it hadn't had a chance to give him helmet head. But it's just funny that we see him again, and obviously he doesn't have the helmet on at this point. He's now wearing armor, which becomes a point during this episode, and he's still got like the smooth good hair, and it's just pretty, it's just something that my eyes went straight to him, like, oh man, look at that.
Yeah, oh yeah, like we were saying before the show, like, yeah, you kind of can't help it because it's just the poof there. So
it's just like a quaff. It's just like, right there, like, wow. If there's one thing, there are Hollywood actors and actresses that are obviously there for their looks, but every once in a while you get someone who also has the hair, right? And it's just kind of it's kind of not distracting, but it definitely catches your attention.
Right. Or at times don't, because now that I think about it, he played the Hitman, who's bald in a Hitman movie. For those who
Right.
know the video game. Um, but yes, Timothy Olyphant is back as Cobb Vann. We see him busting up a a, um, a spice deal with the Pikes. Which is slightly kind of funny because this is like, okay, he just walks up and is like, if the Mandalorian's Western roots didn't show already, then this kind of reminds you, hey, it was totally there, because he comes in all Western sheriff, like we don't do any kind of dealings here. Although he calls it Mos Pelego, and later we find out it's called Freetown, which from what I'm saying came from one of a book. But regardless, he basically runs the Pike out of there after, well, excuse me, the last remaining Pike after shooting down 3 of the 4 of them.
Right.
and it's like, you must be the smart one. Like, all right, take spice, go and leave. And well, excuse me, take your canister, take your ice cream maker, and go, and leave the spice. Which after they leave, he kicks that over, and what do we find? Cinnamon. It's a whole box of cinnamon.
Exactly. It's interesting because just for a half second, you think maybe he's going to take the money, but he doesn't.
Right.
If just for a half a second, you wonder, well, what is he going to do? Is he just trying to get a cut of the spice trades just so that they'll leave his specific area of Tatooine alone? But, it turns out that Cobb Vanth actually does want to uphold some, law and order,
right.
and is trying to keep the Pikes as a whole out of his assigned area.
Right.
And ultimately, this does, in fact, come back to him when we get to that point later in the story.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, like I said, he kicks over the box of cinnamon. And I thought it was like the wind's blowing, and I'm like, he's clearly going to catch a whiff of that. The way the wind was blowing, because it was kind of blowing back at him. I was like, okay, he's just gonna catch a high off of doing this thing.
Right.
But
right. So the next, I was about to say, so the next part of the episode is probably, I can't even say it's the most shocking, because this episode is full of shocks, and what we did not ring is the spoiler bell. So we've already spoiled just a little bit of the episode, but if you are not interested in hearing any actual spoilers of the Book of Boba Fett, episode 6, you may want to pause this podcast and come back to it when you have watched it, or put your fingers in your ears and say la 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 for like 20 minutes if you're watching live, or tune away, or just leave it on and walk away, or put us on mute. What's that?
Or if you're John Economist.
Exactly. Well, that's I was about to say that's an actual reference to something else that we're probably going to ring the spoiler bell for. Mm-hmm. So here we go. Spoilers for about the next 20 minutes or so. In 3, 2, 1.
So yeah, like I just said, we cut to after that interlude to
space travel.
Yes, we see Din Djarin, the Mandalorian, go to this forested planet that is not indoor.
Right. He's using the modified Naboo starfighter that we saw in the previous episode.
Mm-hmm. So, and apparently, so it's like, well, they got bamboo in space. So, and there's surely a lot of it around there. We see we see the Mandalorian land. He runs into R2-D2, which as soon as I saw the sensor, I was like, oh snap, R2.
Absolutely. And, because my first instinct was, how on earth does Mando know where to go? And you start to realize, oh, maybe he probably left a forwarding address. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Or he honed in on. Well, how did they know he was coming? That was the real question, I guess.
Well, I figure, as you just mentioned, R2 could sense. He had his sensor array up, right. But you wonder if Mando wasn't communicating with R2.
That seems to be the prevailing wisdom there. So,
right.
But yeah, he lands, talks to R2, and actually, the one thing that I've noticed, which I don't think we talked about that much with that real quick, was that in the beginning of the Mandalorian, he did not like droids, and the last couple of episodes, he's been like, "Hello, friend," like Little Bill or something. But
It's evolved,
right,
it's the evolution of the character.
exactly.
Evolution of the character. So, it's interesting how far that character has come since we last saw him, and spoilers for the previous episode, he's technically not even a Mandalorian, at least according to the
Well,
rest of
yes,
Death Watch.
correct. But yeah, I'm sure we'll get to that in season 3 of the Mandalorian. But anyway,
Right.
so he hooks up with R2, and he basically says, "Yeah, take me to Luke. I want to see Grogu." So R2, and you could always tell R2's like, I don't know, but okay. So we see here R2 leading the way. Mando's following him, and he's henceforth calling him Mando still, even though he's stripped of his title. Or Dan, whatever.
Yeah, nobody else knows that, but yeah.
Right. So so goes off to this one point. Then, well, actually, excuse me, they start that off, and then we see Luke training with Grogu,
Right.
aka Baby Yoda. And of course, as Grogu wants to be, he's kind of distracted by some frogs, because he's a little snacker. So, so he's
Right.
trying to pull a frog out the lake and have it for a little snack, and then Luke's
Right. This
like,
is part of the this is a part of, I guess, what we should acknowledge is that a lot of this episode is, bits of a Jedi training montage spread out,
right,
because we have, different stages of Jedi training interspersed throughout this episode as we follow Grogu and now Master Luke
right.
In this episode. So
Right.
that, just
Matter of
keep
fact,
that in mind, because it's interspersed around, events of the episode.
right. Not only that, but it's familiar training, because it's basically some of the same training that it's the same, essentially the reverse of the same training that Luke got on Dagobah from Yoda.
Right.
In certain parts of it.
Right. He's still doing, Luke is actually still carrying, and this is of note. I thought this was interesting, and it made obvious sense as soon as I realized that Grogu's just not up to doing a lot of that stuff on his own yet. Well, although he grows into it, Grogu is being carried in a backpack, much like Yoda was by Luke in Empire. So, once that realization hit me, is like, oh, so this is a parallel to that, but it's meant to be Luke training Grogu.
Right.
So,
in fact,
go ahead.
I was about to say, in fact, during part of this, which is part of the part, because we can kind of put some of this all together, being that been the case, because Luke talks to Grogu about Yoda. As they're walking and talking, and I do like the fact that Luke's using the Force to kind of bring Grogu along when they're talking about him,
right? Just to keep the conversation and the pace of their walk moving, because Grogu is not that fast.
Right, at least not yet. Because I imagine he would not. Well, once he ends up getting to the later point in the episode, I'm sure he will get to that point. Now that he will have known, he will have gotten trained enough to be able to do Force jumps.
He'll move a little bit better.
Yeah. So, but anyway, in the first part of it, Luke talks to Grogu about Yoda, tells him about it. Like, yeah, he's kind of like, he's short like you. Like, do you remember anything about your home? And obviously, Grogu don't, because all he remembers, or from what we know, is he just remembers the Great Jedi Purge, which he unfortunately gets retreated to, because Luke uses the Force to bring that back up.
Right. I was kind of disappointed by this by this particular revelation, because I was hoping for more insight into where Grogu actually comes from. But except what we see is Order 66 from his point of view.
But I suspect we may possibly get more of that in Mandalorian during season 3. Should think.
Right. I was hoping for more of a hint.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, we did get a slightly different perspective, because because we see Order 66 going on. We see the troopers kind of going at 3 Jedis and getting the 3 Jedis getting gunned down, and then the last we can see is the shadow coming over Grogu, possibly whoever helps him get out of the temple. We still don't know who that is. Yeah, that was the part I kind of really wanted to know about, but I guess, like I said, we will potentially get that at some point, hopefully. But in any case, like I said, and then it cuts back to the present, quote unquote, and Luke talking to him. Then we cut back to the Mandalorian, who reaches where basically the building site of the temple of Luke's temple with some androids and R2, and he's like, okay, so where's Luke and Grogu? And R2's like, hey.
He literally shuts down, and the androids build Mando a bench so he can chill, because it's going to be a while.
Right.
And the funniest part about this is that, you know, we're all anticipating something, and we're literally forced to wait as we get some more montage, more elements of the training montage.
Right.
But ultimately, the person that is brought to meet or is arranged to meet Din Djarin is none other than Darth Vader's, Anakin Skywalker's former Padawan, Ahsoka Tano.
So I loved and hated, well, not hated. I loved the part, but also it was kind of sad, I should say. Because, and especially with her, which we'll get to, because she has a couple of interactions in this episode. She first interacts with Mando and tells him, like, yeah, you know, you might not want to, you know, you might not want to be here. So basically, from what people are saying, R2 might have been the one to contact, kind of gave Mando a swerve and contacted Ahsoka. I don't know how true that is. And it just so happened that she was there for some reason, which I know people have been speculating could have been the case, that all of them would have been in the same place and kind of, you know, circumvented some meetings. So, but anyway, but it's kind of sad because of the fact that it was like, well, she's got to tell him, pretty much reiterate what she told him when she met him in the first place. It was like, yeah, and if he's going to be a Jedi, he's, you know, you gotta, y'all's attachment is too strong. If he's going to become a Jedi, you kind of got to let him go. And you could hear it in Din's voice. It was like, but I came all this way.
That's right.
You know, even though he tried to mask it, it was like, no, I just wanted to bring him this care package that I got him, you know, that I sent it for him. And it was like,
that's funny.
Give it to him. And she was like, no, if he sees you, then he's just gonna, you know, it'll make it harder.
Like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's exactly what she says. It's just going to make the goodbye harder. You know, that's right. I'm paraphrasing there, but that's essentially what she means. Yeah. And basically, Din Djarin is convinced by this, and gives Ahsoka the little wrapped up, what we confirm later to be a shirt of mithril armor. I mean, Beskar armor.
It was like, yes, we were right. Which, I mean, wasn't hard. It was like, shit, he got a mithril vest, a shirt. Nice.
Exactly. So, you know, so Ahsoka takes that little bundle, and Din Djarin reluctantly leaves Tatooine. And what we do see is Grogu seeing the Naboo starfighter take off and leave, and I'm fairly certain he senses who's on the ship as it's leaving.
Right, which kind of surprised me, because I was like, I'm surprised he didn't feel it before then. And in fact, one part of me thought it was like, okay, maybe he does feel it, and that's why he's also distracted, because he was on there for a good. Din was kind of there for a minute, so I'm just kind of surprised he didn't sense him. But yeah, like you said, that happened. Din left to go back out to Tatooine, which also brought me to another situation real quick, because I was like, I kind of would have wanted Din to talk to Luke, even though I know this wasn't going to happen. But because it was like, hey, yeah, I'm on my way back to Tatooine because there's some shit going down on your home planet, yo.
That's funny.
But I know that wasn't gonna ever happen. You know, it's like, yo, the Pikes are taking over, trying to take over Tatooine, and Boba Fett's doing this thing, and I'm about to go back over there, and obviously, that would have been great to see, because Luke's like, oh, I gotta go.
Or I mean, Luke. Like, what's funny is that Luke is no longer has any source of attachment.
Correct.
to Tatooine at this
Well, I
point.
mean, his
So
friends are still there.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
Yeah.
That's it's funny to think about that way. Think about the whole thing that way.
Right, but nevertheless, it doesn't happen. So yeah, so we
right.
go back to Luke and Grogu training. We see the training droid, the familiar training remote droid from A New Hope. Take a swipe at Grogu before he gets it, because Luke's teaching him how to do a force jump, which he eventually ends up getting, which goes back to what I was saying earlier.
Although there's a very tough sequence to watch involving the testing droid, the training droid, where Grogu is essentially forced into using his reflexes or using his force enhanced reflexes.
Okay. Sure. Yeah.
Well, basically where the training droid shoots at Grogu, and it's a pretty sudden shot.
Right. Oh yeah. Well, the first shot. Yeah.
Yeah, that very first shot is kind of jarring. You're just like, wait, what do you do? Oh yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which it's happened to Luke, except for the fact that Luke actually got hit. Well, I guess because I'm presuming because it looks like it was like real close, but didn't actually hit Grogu.
Right.
But
no, exactly. It was at his feet. Right. It was at his feet, and it was very funny because you have to remind yourself he's 50.
Right.
So
exactly.
But ultimately, at this point we get so at this point, as Roddykat said, we have more the jump and mobility training. And it was exciting to see because it's a real step in Grogu's physical, emotional, and force development all in one.
Right.
Because we're getting to see what Grogu could be as a more mobile character, as opposed to being to this point very stationary, being limited to very 50-year-old baby steps,
right,
as it were.
Right. And then I think this is the point where we cut back to Tatooine, where Din gets back to Boba's palace, and there's a briefing on how to handle the Pikes in a way. And they basically said, hey, yeah, between Din and Chrysanthemum, we got muscle, we got enforcers, we just need some more muscle, because these little mod kids on their space Vespers, can only do what they do.
Right. Right.
So,
they need volume, they need numbers.
Right.
Because they actually have some of the deadlier bounty hunters in the galaxy. They just need like literal actual numbers. Right. Before, like as the lead up to this though, I thought it was a really nice shot of the Naboo starfighter docking in the spaceport of Jabba's, now Boba Fett's palace.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought that was a really nice shot. Okay. It's not something that we're used to seeing, and it was just a really cool docking approach. It was just like, oh, that's actually really cool. And as Roddykat said, there is a meeting that Mando does in fact get back to.
Right, and that one Gamorrean guard who approaches Din when he docks, which almost kind of mirrors what happens in a lesser way what happens in a little bit, because so after this, Din's like, yo, I know some people, because they needed some more bodies. So Din goes off to I forgot the name of the place now. Freetown, basically, but I can't remember the name, what they call it.
Mos Pelgo.
Thank you, Mos Pelgo. To recruit Cobb Vanth and his people, because because as we know from the Mandalorian, he helped they helped them with a crate dragon problem. Well, excuse me, helped the Tuskens with
they teamed up with the Tuskens to deal with the crate dragon that was basically bedeviling both the citizens of Mos Pelgo and the Tuskens. So
right, and we see the skeleton of said thing from on the Jawa skiff as he was going, and apparently I guess the Jawas, must have been the same Jawas, obviously, but also they knew it was Din in that starfighter for some reason.
Right. It was just very odd to see that gigantic skull mounted kind of like bull horns on the top of the Jawa. What is it called?
It's not a skiff. It's a I forgot, sandcrawler. I think. Yeah.
Sandcrawler,
Sandcrawler.
right?
Yeah.
The gigantic sandcrawler.
Yeah. So, and which is, but some people, so it's like, yeah, it's kind of metal though. It was like, yeah, it kind of was, but also, but I'm with you. It's like, yeah, that's kind of weird. And how the hell they get it up there? Because I know
Exactly. It's like, how'd you get that up there?
right. Like I know they have a crane for certain stuff, but it was like, there's, oh, yeah, but somehow the way the little fellas got it up there. But anyway,
Right.
so he passed by them, ends up going to meeting Cobb Van. But first, we get a meeting with his very irritating deputy, who was like, "You can't land here. You know, you can't land here. You got to land over there in the flats." And I was like, "Well,
yeah, he's basically enforcing parking regulations,
right.
not knowing who he's dealing with."
Exactly.
And Cobb Van steps in and says, "I'll handle this, deputy."
Mm-hmm. But from that meeting, you can already tell something's going to happen to that the little mouthy dude. But we'll get to that in a second, because so Cobb Van and Mando have a chat over a drink, and you know, Mando's trying to recruit him as peaceable. Cobb's like, you know, I got this area, and it's not our problem. Well, at least, excuse me, the bartender was like, yeah, it's not our problem. That's some city folk stuff. And Cobb Van's like, yeah, it's kind of not, but you know, he finds himself thinking about it. And basically he basically says he'll get back to Mando, who leaves. He's like, all right, cool, just think about it. And then he leaves. And then I think we cut back to I forgot the name of the planet that the Luke is training on, but regardless, or Luke is training Grogu on. Incidentally, I believe the temple that is being built is the same one that gets burnt down, and that we see get burnt down in Last Jedi. Or
yeah, I was about to say it's the one that we see on fire in the movies that shall not be named. Oh no, shots fired.
So it is.
But let's not skip past what we actually find out.
Oh, I know.
I don't remember. Right. I don't remember if this is. I think this is the exact order in of the chronology, because we are going off of somebody else's chronology, because there's so much to digest in this episode that is just a bit much for us to sit down and write. But what we find after Din Djarin leaves Cobb Vanth for to get back to Boba Fett's palace, there is a lone figure walking out of the desert out of the Dune Sea into Mos Pelgo.
Yeah,
and it is again a very much a Western callback,
right?
Because everything from the shape of the figure, what the figure is wearing, to the shots that we see of both the figure and the characters in Mos Pelgo that sense the figure coming, and from Cobb Vanth to the punk deputy who's only been on the job for a little while, and even the citizens of Mos Pelgo who are told to get into to take cover, to take shelter. If anyone has ever watched anything remotely of the Western genre, you know what's about to happen.
Right. So
and what happens? We have an entrance of a character.
Wait. Before you get to that, how long did it take you to recognize who it was?
Not long, because of this. Like I said, that's why when I mentioned the shape and the silhouette and very Western themes,
right?
As soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, I think I know who that is. Right? Yeah. And I had to search my memory banks to remember his name, because it's just been a while since I'd seen him, although he has been in the anime. Well, obviously, as I said earlier, he was a character that premiered in the animated series and has been in everything, including the recent Bad Batch series.
Right.
And we get the live action debut of one Cad Bane.
Cad motherfucking Bane. I'm telling you, when I saw when we saw Cobb kind of looking out and saw him in the figure, I was like, at first I was thinking it was the other I don't know if you remember the other bounty hunter that kind of had almost like the bowl kind of hat that had the sniper rifle from Clone Wars. Didn't really say that much, but he was with the
Right,
other
right,
group.
right.
I
But it
thought
was the shape. The shape was so
I know,
obvious. That's
but
the
then,
thing. Yeah.
well, but then the second time they cut back to him, I saw the duster, and I was like, oh shit, I know exactly who that is.
Oh no, it was the hat. The hat
Right,
totally
that's what I'm
gave it to
saying.
me. I mean, I guess it was just the overall silhouette. You know,
Right.
the overall
Well, excuse me,
silhouette
the
gave
hat.
it
You're
away.
right. Yeah, yeah. No, as soon as I saw the hat, I was like, I know exactly who the fuck this is. I'm like, oh, is it like Cobb's dead?
Yeah,
Like,
it was a
Cobb's
bad
about to
sign. It was a
die.
bad sign. So just
Yeah.
as a quick aside, right? And I was reminded, thanks to this article, that Cad Bane does in fact show up in the Bad Batch.
Yes.
So you know, we know that Fennec Shand was introduced into the animated series in the Bad Batch as well. So it's interesting to see these two characters now logically going to meet up, or likely going to meet up
Probably
in
gonna
live
reunite,
action in the next and ultimate episode of the Book of Boba Fett. But they do interact. Mild spoiler alert for the Bad Batch, because I know Roddykat has not watched it.
But I did but thanks to like Easter egg videos, I did kind of catch on to that.
Okay.
And I did know that Fennec Shand was in Bad Batch prior to that anyway. But yeah, and I didn't know that. I don't think I knew that Cad Bane had showed up there, but I'm not surprised because he's been all up and through Clone Wars. So, but nevertheless, so we get to the meeting of Cobb Vanth.
I was about to say the character has been around for a while in the animation, you know, because he was in Clone Wars. Does he show up in Rebels at all?
I don't think so. No.
Okay, it's mostly so it's Clone Wars and Bad Batch. Okay,
right. But so we get to the meeting of Cobb Vanth and Cad Bane, who pretty much comes with an ultimatum saying, "Hey, you know, you don't want to get involved with this whole Pike situation, and Boba Fett's a killer. You don't want to be on that side. Obviously, you know, Cad Bane has had some dealings with a younger version of Boba, so he kind of knows him." So
kinda,
yes,
or at least he has some personal interactions to reference here, but obviously he's not up to date with Boba Fett.
Right. Yeah. Like I said, the version he dealt with was much younger Boba, and obviously this is a long time since their last meeting, probably, unless that ends up coming up somewhere in a comic or a book somewhere where they've met again or whatever the case may be. Regardless, ends up being a showdown between Cobb and Cad Bane and that stupid deputy, which ends up going, probably, if you know anything about Cad Bane, the way you think it does, except for the fact that he doesn't. Somebody ends up dead and someone ends up pretty wounded. I guess we can go ahead and spoil it. Like Cobb takes one in the shoulder. That deputy pretty much gets perforated, which was probably deserved.
Yeah,
you know, and Cad Bane just turns around and leaves. And while the town folk kind of tend to I don't. The only thing, the funny part about that scene was, like, we saw people running towards Cobb. I don't think we've seen anybody running towards the deputy.
I think they knew that he was a lost cause at that point.
Right. Like, exactly. Like, he had been perforated, and I was like, well, you know, like, get this man a stem, to Cobb and whatnot, who was just kind of laying there. But like I said, if you saw the shot, like, people are saying that Cobb might be dead. I don't think so, because he took it at the shoulder. You could see where the shot was taken. So he probably won't be able to draw again. But I mean, not draw, but he probably won't be able to shoot, easily again. But he's not dead,
right?
Unless
at least anytime soon,
right?
So
presumably, because if a shot in the arm to where he got shot, which is also slightly kind of surprising for Cad Bane, because normally Cad Bane usually shoots to kill. So
right. Well, I think at the end of the day, the shot was just slightly awry, and then he went after the deputy who was just being idiotic, and he just dedicated several shots to the deputy, who just did not go down right away.
Right. And let's be honest, if it was the deputy's fault anyway, because you could see Cobb just kind of looking, or just kind of,
of course,
kind of got distracted by trying to seeing if the deputy was going to do something stupid, and he did, and it went off the way it did.
Of course.
Anyway,
so before I was about to say, I'll let Roddykat take the finale of the episode. So I'll just jump in and say that we do have a cutscene where we run into the Pikes back at the Sanctuary bar where what is that character's name? Jennifer Beals character. Garza Thwip.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, because it sounds so much like Thwip, the Spidey web shooting sound, right? So Garza Thwip, we run into her and her employees at the bar, and the Pikes go in, and unfortunately, it is a very cliche scene that we've seen in many a gangster movie.
Yeah.
And we're not sure what is going to, what happens once the Pikes basically set off a bomb, leave a bomb in the Sanctuary bar, and we don't know what happens to Garza Thwip at that point. And I will leave the finale, the juicy finale of this episode to Roddykat.
I don't know. That feels pretty definite, unless she scattered out there real fast. But yeah, no, I think we might not see her again. Who we probably will see again, though, and I've seen people making note of this, and I did too. Max Rebo was nowhere to be found in that scene, so he may have lived to see another day. We're just saying,
right?
His bandmates, the people he was playing with, not so much, but. But yeah, so then we cut back after that happens. We cut back to the planet where Luke is. I can't remember the name of it. I heard it, but I don't remember. Regardless, but where Luke and Grogu were. I believe this is where. I think we might have missed that part, or this was when the part. But no, there was a part, because there was a part that we didn't talk about earlier, in the fact that Luke and Ahsoka, which this was cool for me to see, because this is their first interaction together ever. And obviously we know Ahsoka, as she says here, which this part was kind of sad but happy, because she was like, because Luke was kind of doubting his training of his being able to train Grogu, and Ahsoka's like, just like your father. Like, he's like, you're just like your father. And I was like, that was a happy moment. Then I was like, whoa, wait, you know what happened to his dad though.
Right.
Like,
yeah, there was a lot. Yeah, that's a very complicated statement to to digest and pull apart.
Right. So but she kind of, I guess she was trying to say it as a positive, because like oh yeah, and then I think she introduced herself earlier as a friend of the family,
right,
to Mandalorian, which was, again, yeah, I was like, yeah, that's kind of an understatement, but sure. But nevertheless, like I said, her and Luke end up talking at one point, and then she leaves, but not before saying Luke asking, like, were we seeing together? Perhaps, which probably means her show when that comes up. So, and then she leaves, and then, like I said, cut to everything that just happened then, and now we cut back to Luke training Grogu again, and presumably inside the temple. And Grogu is presented a choice. And this part, I love this part so much, and 1870 knows why. So Luke pretty much presents Grogu with two options. He takes the little package from Mando that Ahsoka gave him, opens it up, presents the little mithril Beskar shirt, lays it down, and also somehow has Yoda's lightsaber. And he's
right. That was just a little bit that took me out of the episode for a couple of seconds. Like, right. What? How does he get that? Okay, fine.
Well, so I saw something that said, like, maybe, and I think it did come up in a comic though, that Yoda recreated his lightsaber, but I don't remember it. So, so because I think we saw in Revenge of the Sith, he lost it because of his fight with Palpatine. But yeah, that's like, that kind of messed with me for a second. And I was like, well, yeah, I guess he could, because it makes sense that he could have recreated it. He would know how. Right. So regardless, he basically made the choice of choose the sword or choose the ball from like straight up Lone Wolf and Cubs Shogun Assassin. And then
it's literally recreating, shots that were taken from the manga and put into the movies. And it's very much, you can see the strong influence that this particular story had on the creation of The Mandalorian.
Right. And that's where the show ends, because we cut to Grogu's face, who's kind of making the decision, and then the show goes off. I'm we don't see the choice, obviously. I mean, we don't see him making the choice. We'll probably either see that next episode, or maybe they'll hold it to Mandalorian season 3. Who's to say at this point? Probably more likely we'll see it next episode.
Mm-hmm.
Since this seems to be the path they're going down with this, but we don't see it now. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, you know what? He should choose just force both of them into his hands. It's like, I'm taking both. That's what I would want to see. And as people have pointed out, and as it was brought up last episode, there's been a Mandalorian Jedi before. In fact, that's how we got the dark.
Well, that's how we got exactly.
So
how we get the Darksaber. So it's not unheard of. So it's very much a nice little cliffhanger as the penultimate episode of this series.
Right. Now, granted, I don't know if Luke probably doesn't know that, and I don't know if Ahsoka knows that or knew that part. Although she would have known that, because she's been around some Mandalorians, possibly. I mean, we know she's been around some Mandalorians, but possibly would have known that because of her time around Mandalorians. But we don't know that.
Oh, you mean about the Darksaber?
Right.
I mean, at the end of the day, that's a lot of that stuff might have been in the archives. She's the last Jedi that had any sort of access to the archives.
Right, but she also had firsthand.
That's still around.
True,
you know what I mean?
She also had firsthand experience with Mandalorians, also.
Right.
And
no, of course. But in terms of like the history.
Right.
So because Luke doesn't have any access to that stuff. He has books, but those books may not have that particular set of information.
Right. Yeah, and maybe and probably the 1 or 2 holocrons, which he would have probably had at this point, probably doesn't. Mm-hmm. Well, which he does have at this point. Now that I think about it, probably wouldn't have that either.
Right. So it seemed, but the point being that it makes sense that Ahsoka would be the one who would have that information of anyone.
Right. Exactly. So that being said, like I said, I am looking forward to the next and final episode of Book of Boba Fett. And as we were talking before the show, they're going to have to. We know it's probably going to be one big action piece with the whole Pike thing on Tatooine. Mm-hmm. That's clearly the way that has to go. Whether it brings up Grogu's choice, or anything else, kind of leading into Mandalorian season 3, we don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack in that last episode, and they're going to have probably several plot lines to keep going, to have to extend or tie up before we get into the next piece of Star Wars Disney Plus television.
Mm-hmm. We're probably not going to see a Cobb Vanth show, so based off of that. So I think it's pretty safe to say that's the case. But yeah, like I said, it was a great episode, just like last week's, and I know there's been a lot of talk about it's like, these are the better episodes and that don't have Boba Fett in them, or not much of Boba Fett in them. So, it is what it is on that part.
Mm-hmm.
I guess unless you got something else you want to say,
no.
Patson, then we'll
no, I'm good. We can move on.
Okay. Then we'll move on to a really quick talk about Peacemaker. We're not going to recap Peacemaker, but we'll just talk about Peacemaker episode 6 briefly.
Right. Well, I'll still ring the spoiler bell. So if you're not interested in listening to anything about Peacemaker episode 6, because actually in Peacemaker we still have 2 more episodes after this, unlike the one remaining episode in Book of Boba Fett. So spoilers likely incoming for Peacemaker episode 6, incoming in 3, 2, 1.
Right. So, the only I'll say the beginning of this, in the recap is like at the end of the last episode, we see Mern confronting Leota outside because she found out that he was a butterfly, which I feel like the signs were there at some point, but this is a confirmation of it. But it doesn't end the way it seemed like it would have, in that anything happened to her. and kind of find out he's one of the good ones, quote unquote, I guess.
Right. This is the first of several big twists in this episode.
Right. So we found out that confirmation is a butterfly. Harcourt knows, and so does Economist. So basically, the majority of the team knows this, with the exception of, like I said, Economist knows, except for he like actually puts his fingers in his ears when it comes up.
Exactly. Yeah. The tip that we give everyone to avoid spoilers on when listening to this episode, by putting your fingers in your ears and saying la 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 la. That is exactly what Diebeard does when they talk about Myrn being a butterfly.
Exactly. So the rest of the episode is basically them still keeping that information away from Peacemaker for some reason, and culmination of some other stuff that has happened in the series. His dad gets out of jail and decides he wants to kill his son. The diary that the Leota planet still ends up getting used. The police go after Peacemaker. The butterfly that Peacemaker has had in a jar escapes and inhabits the police detective, one of the police detectives that we have come to know, which, as we said earlier before the show, was kind of sad because I hated to see that happen to her. But then
yes, this is it happens to Detective Sophie Song, the Asian character, which I was kind of like, oh, come on.
Yeah, but later on in the episode, the rest of the police department and people that had in lockup also get the butterfly treatment.
Right.
Thanks to
I was about to say we skipped a whole bunch there, but ultimately, what Roddykat is mentioning is that the head of the butterfly, or at least this part of the butterfly invasion, is the former alien that was inhabiting the senator.
Right.
And it's that alien that Peacemaker was keeping alive, and it's that alien that takes over Detective Song's character. So, what ends up happening is that Detective Song's now alien character calls in reinforcements.
Right.
And it's those reinforcements that take over everybody in the police station,
including a dude that Myrn was working with to kind of keep some stuff on a hush hush within the police department, but he also gets taken over by this. I think the other thing is, like I said, people are still withholding information on to Peacemaker, and in the end of the episode, we find out that the newly butterfly police are going after Peacemaker, and that diary kind of comes up there, which Leota plants it. That was a crux of it. Like I can't remember much else of the episode though, but yeah, it was like as Leota said at the beginning of, and there was a cow that they mentioned, but it doesn't show up. But as Leota said, this is getting goofy. I mean, it already was, but this show was already kind of on that point. But I love that the fact that it was like they acknowledged how goofy the show is.
Roddykat keeps calling her by her first name, and I'm like, who's Leota? Oh, Adebayo.
Right. So yeah. But yeah, that's like that. It's a fun show. I still don't really care about the character all that much. Oh yeah, there was that.
No, we're not supposed to care about the characters all that much. We're just supposed to kind of see the characters evolve, and we're obviously starting to see the whole point of this show has more obviously become a redemption arc for Peacemaker from what we saw of the character in the Suicide Squad movie. Notice I've stressed to differentiate the two Suicide Squad movies. But at the end of the day, I don't think we're supposed to care that much about these characters, but it's interesting to see how they interact with each other.
Right. Well, no, it's Peacemaker's character is what I'm talking about that I don't care about.
Yeah, because I'd love to punt the version of Vigilante that they give us here.
Yeah, he's also kind of annoying.
But he serves a purpose, and we have to understand and acknowledge that. So that's the purpose that he's been given, even though it's so far from any characterization of Vigilante we've had ever.
Right. So yeah, and like I said, the whole show is ridiculous, one way or the other. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
all right. So that being said, we can move on to the comic books of the week.
All righty. I'll play a transition.
And we start off with, oh, that's right. That's the reason why I pulled this up. We can start off with Amazing Spider-Man number 88.
All righty. The creative team on Amazing Spider-Man number 88. This book is written by Zeb Wells with art by Michael Dowling, colors by Brian Valenza, and letters by our favorite Faison over at VC, Joe Caramagna. So we follow up basically from the events of last issue, and we find Maxine Danger trying to come up with a way to recover from some of the things that Ben Reilly and Janine have been doing over the last several issues, and she's coming up with a plan, and she seems to have one. Once we finish up with that opening montage of what her morning is like.
Right.
It's all very much, it's all, you know what's funny? It all very much reminds me of, and I think it's a take on the Elizabeth Holmes daily planner stuff that came out during her trial.
Okay.
From the Theranos lady.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yes.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
I think I do. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but you're right. Yeah. But and we also come to find out, so I was kind of wondering about this. So we end up finding out that Beyond has a couple of different divisions. Maxine Danger is a part of one side of it, and the assessor is a part of another. So basically we find out the assessor is working with Beyond, which makes the whole Miles tie-in thing make more sense, because I wasn't really understanding where that tie was, and now thanks to this confirming it, I guess we've kind of find out that basically it's like Maxine Danger is working on the superhero side of Beyond, and the assessor's making villains, although Maxine, kind of being a villain herself, is also capable of doing that, as we see in this issue. Especially if you're watching the video version, you can see the cover, because we see
it's interesting because and just as a quick note, and I'll let Roddykat continue. As a quick note, it's interesting that Beyond, thanks to that revelation, has been active in the Marvel 616 proper even longer than we thought, because that assessor storyline happened a while ago. Mm-hmm. It happened after Infinite, after the whole revelation of what happened to the Infinity Stone / gems.
Right. And actually, I think it goes even further than that, though. I'm sorry. Finish what you
said. No. I was about to say, because at the end of the day, our previous interaction with the Beyond Corp was in Next Wave, but this kind of retcons the Beyond Corporation in the 616 proper in the present day part of the timeline. That's probably the best way to put it. The present day part of the timeline has Beyond being active earlier than we thought.
Right.
And being around in the Spidey lives, in the lives of various Spider-Men earlier than we thought.
Well, honestly, like I said, it goes beyond that, because Maxine Danger tells a story of was it Siege? Was it Secret Invasion or Siege? I believe what it was. Basically saying
Siege. Exactly. They're kind of tangential to an event that happens in Siege.
Right. So because of something that happens in Siege is why Beyond is in the business that they're in now, doing what they're doing with the superheroes and the villains on the other side, kind of playing both sides. Almost like an anti damage control, but also a little bit of Roxxon, in a way, because of their dealings on both sides of it. So from that story, we get to the fact that this is why they're doing what they're doing, and this is why this is coming up with Ben and the Spider Queen, and something like Goblin Queen, and pretty much and Miles and Accessor and all that kind of good messes coming up during that.
It's kind of a plot. It's kind of a plot that we've seen in other media and other comics, and even in My Hero Academia season 4,
which I have not seen yet, so I don't.
Exactly, that's exactly why I put it that way, because I didn't want to spoil Roddykat, because he's probably going to get to that at some point.
At some point, yes. But outside of that, so the other side of this issue is that Maxine releases the Goblin Queen, who goes after Janine, who is at
Oh no! Well, hold on. What we find out thanks to this reveal is what that red goo was. The red goo in the jar.
Yes, that's correct.
We were wondering about that. We didn't know about that over the last couple of issues, and that's essentially what gets released is, and this is a spoiler, but it's actually tying into Spencer's run.
Right, which was kind of weird because it's actually two things. Because there was that one thing, it was that thing that I presumed it was that one part of that one thing that Misty and Colleen went after also, but I don't think that's the case. But it's definitely from Spencer's run, and I'm sitting here like, how did that even happen?
Right.
Because I was like, so I'm not even gonna go into it, but basically something happens, and apparently we are folks.
It's all related to Norman Osborn and what happens to him during the latter half of Spencer's run.
Right.
So that's the part where I was like, oh, so that's where all that went. One. Right. And two, it's all the Sin Eater stuff.
Right. And I'm sitting here like, how? But but then I was like, all right, I'm just gonna let that go.
It's comics, exactly. We're just gonna keep reading.
Mm-hmm. So nevertheless, the Goblin Queen goes after Janine and Mary Jane by proxy. Who Janine has the disc, taking it to Mary Jane, who took it to the Bugle. I almost said the Daily Planet, the Bugle, to try to basically so they can expose Beyond.
Right. It's a glory grant. Yes. Talk about alliteration. To the extreme.
Mm-hmm. But the Goblin Queen attacks her, and Spidey get into a fight, which apparently she knows Ben, because she even calls him by name, even in the suit.
Right, so, but I think what the reveal is, and I think what's going to be revealed in the next issue, and I put two and two together from the previous issue.
Okay.
And here's a mild spoiler because I think I'm right on this, but I think that's Dr. Kafka, the clone.
Yes, I am with you on that. Mm-hmm.
That's why Ben Reilly isn't known to this version or this Queen Goblin character.
Right. Because at first I was like, wait, is this a clone of Janine? Because it's always about clones. But then something she said, like you said, or something that came up in that whole exchange was like, okay, that's Kafka. You're right. So I am with you on that assessment. But that being the case, it doesn't matter because the disc gets destroyed, and Ben and Janine scatter, leaving Mary Jane with the Goblin Queen, with the Queen Goblin, at the plant at the Daily Bugle. Why do I want to say the Daily Planet? And that's where the story. So basically, Ben does a Ben thing.
Right. Exactly. He's looking out for self, not exactly being a hero at this point in time. It's interesting that Ben Reilly's reaction to the destruction of the hard drive is nil to non-existent, which leads us all to believe he's got a backup somewhere.
Which would probably be the smartest thing. Yeah, and I thought about that. I was like, yeah, it's probably the smartest thing he's done with that, if that's the case.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we'll find out next issue, which I can't believe we're still reading this. Either one of us is still reading this.
It's because, and I told Roddykat this, they would find a way to keep us anti, or at least non-Ben Reilly fans reading this, just to see, how Peter Parker regains the identity. So, and that's exactly what's happening, because now we are in February. We're in early February, and at some point in March, they're going to relaunch Amazing with a new number one with Peter Parker at the helm.
Correct. And Ben's book has started, which neither one of us has read. So, shuffle them off all they want. All right.
Exactly.
Next up, now that we've got that out of the way, is the big book of not even arguably the big book of the week, but probably the big book of the week, in Fantastic Four Reckoning War Alpha number 1, which I forgot to put that in my notes.
All right, and while you're doing that, I will give the creative team. This book is written by Dan Slott, and actually comes from an idea by Dan Slott that stretches back many, many moons, many years, many rotations of the sun, of the Earth around the sun, that is.
Yes.
And art is by Carlos Pacheco and Rafael Fonteriz. Is that right? Fonteriz?
That's
and Carlos Magno. Colors are by Guru EFX, and letters are by our favorite Faison, VC's Joe Caramagna.
So, real quick, and I know this is a side note because it's probably going to come up slightly later, but I might as well bring it up now. Is Carla Pacheco and Carlos related?
I don't believe so. Okay. I think I Googled that a long time ago. We can Google it now, but I'm pretty sure they're not related.
Okay. But regardless, like I said, that was a side note I was thinking of when I was reading Spider-Woman. But like I said, I'll get to that later.
Right. I only mentioned this. I mean, I think Google confirmed it, but I've met Carlos Pacheco once in the past to get him to sign some books. I met him at a con, and he is very, very much a national of Spain.
Gotcha.
And I don't think Carlos Pacheco is that.
Sure. Okay. Nevertheless, so yeah, Fantastic Four: Reckoning War Alpha. It sets up a lot. So and not to go through the whole thing, but basically I'm going to paraphrase this. I'll let Agent 70 kind of take the bulk of this. But basically, here's what I'm thinking about it. It's basically Watcher Armor Wars.
That's definitely one way to look at it.
But it was something that Slott has set up going back to the second volume of his run on She-Hulk, apparently, which we come to find out in, or at least I come to confirm in a little bit of research for this, which I said I think last week or last time we talked about She-Hulk or even whatever, or Fantastic Four. It was like I knew there was some reason why I wanted to go back and read the She-Hulk books, not just because of the show that's coming out, but Dan Slott's She-Hulk books. But apparently this is also a reason because that tidbit of information kind of comes up in here, and even a couple of characters, well, excuse me, one particular character, but two characters kind of come up that deal with the TVA. That one of which comes from Slott's run, and the other comes from Thor, apparently.
Right, that's you know what? I totally forgot about the TVA showing up in this. That was there's a lot. There's just a lot in this.
A lot. Yeah.
And we're not going to go beat for beat in this because there's just too much to it.
Yeah.
And very very broad strokes, the assessment that Roddykat gave it, if you're familiar with the original concept of Armor Wars, still bears it still rings true, because the gist of this is that something happened prior to the Watchers taking their oath of non-interference.
Right, and we get that at the end of this.
Right, and we get that description, but what ends up moving things forward is and this is a pretty big spoiler, even though we know things like this happen all the time. I'm going to ring the spoiler bell. But basically, the Badoon, at the behest of the characters who are at the source of this crossover, take out the entire moon. Not just the blue side, the entire moon, the entire moon of Earth.
They did a Piccolo.
Oh, yeah. Oh yeah, they definitely listen. All the problems of nature and physics aside, right?
Right.
And I love how Reed actually kind of brushes it off. It's like, oh, there's plenty of planets that don't survive with. I'm like tides,
Right.
Chinese New Year, Lunar New Year.
Exactly.
Gongxi Fatai, Gongi Fachoi, and all the other ways of saying Happy Lunar New Year, because we all know that it's not just the Chinese thing. Koreans celebrate it, the Vietnamese people celebrate it, and throughout Asia. So Happy New Year, and continued health, wealth, and prosperity and increased health, wealth, and prosperity to everyone out there listening and watching.
Indeed. So
normally we would do this either at the beginning or the end, but it's funny that we're literally talking about the destruction of the moon, and it came up.
And it probably would have come up in another book we would talk about anyway. But yes, so it was good that we got that out there regardless. So yeah, so basically the moon gets blown up and it's all hands, and Reed kind of co-ops the Avengers battle cry with for the Fantastic Four, Avengers, and the X-Men.
Right.
All kind
Yeah,
of
all the New York, and it's convenient that there are now X-Men who are based in New York.
right.
And it's funny that they would, in fact, and obviously this particular arc in the story is centered upon New York. So we have the X-Men contingent, part of the X-Men contingent that's in New York, assembling with the FF and the Avengers.
Although there was one little note in that when they all kind of come together, and Spider-Man is there as also because he's there and he saved somebody.
Yeah, stupid Ben Reilly.
Wait, was that Ben or was that? Yeah,
yes, it's Ben. It is Ben Reilly.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. And She-Hulk's there, and Jack of Hearts is there, which we know comes. So clearly, this is after or some either in the middle or after the events of the miniseries that's going on now. But regardless, like I said, it's pretty much all hands. And there's one little thing I bumped on because after Reed kind of sounds the battle cry and they're kind of talking while they're saving folks. If in one panel it looks like Iron Man is talking about we X-Men, have people around the world. I don't know if you noticed that. And I think that's supposed to be Sunfire who is there, but if you look at the character, it's Iron Man.
Oh, the drawing, yeah.
So I was like, I was like, wait, that's like Iron Man's an X-Man now. When did that happen? But I know what that's. I think what that's supposed to be.
Right, that was just a little flub.
Right. So I was like,
that's a little flub in that. I didn't even bump on it because of the way that they depict the way that they depict Sunfire, but then because of the blue energy, that's more Iron Man.
Well, not on that in the little pods that's on the side of him, which I don't think Sunfire had. So
right.
That's why it was making me think about that. But regardless, like I said, like I said, not to belabor it too much long, but like I said, because there's a whole lot going on. Like I said, there's a whole big thing with the Reckoning War, which, like I said, Slots had apparently in his pocket since 2005. 2005 She-Hulk story kind of is now laid bare, and we come to find out that the FF rocket off into space because it was like, well, we know where the weapons are coming from because it's not from the Badoon. They try to go to the moon, which has been blown up, and they meet up with OG Nick Fury, who is a herald. I don't know if he's still being called the Unseen at this point because he's pretty much looks like he almost looks like a Hydra. He looks like Baron Strucker with the eye patch.
Right, except with the whatchamacallit, except with the eye patch. I think the eye patch is on the other side of Baron von Strucker. Baron von Strucker, I think.
Sure.
But I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't either.
But like Roddykat said, he does actually look like von Strucker because he has no hair.
Right. So the FF find that Nick Fury is pretty much back in the fold. Who was taking pot shots at the FF, and I guess he says that. Well, he basically says that, hey, yeah, the Watcher knew what the deal was, and he was going to blow the whistle on and tell his people, and they were going to get involved, and this would be the one time they get involved because of what happened, because of this happening, and this is where the Armor Wars kind of thing comes in with the weapons that the Badoon was using, and Nick Fury kind of says that. Well, it kind of makes it like Uatu's dead again, but I doubt that very seriously because I don't think they would bring him back just to kind of kill him off screen like that. But basically, Reed ends up getting a bump up in knowledge at the end of this because of the thing that the Watcher had to tell his people about the events of what he found out. So, which I don't know if this is taking place before or after recent events of Iron Man, but it kind of doesn't matter. But I just thought about that. I was like, because even in that last panel, Reed's like, I know everything.
Right. That's funny.
Yeah, but regardless, so this kind of getting us into what happens next in in probably Fantastic Four. I think is probably the next book. I'm not sure what the next.
Yeah, the next issue, right? The note at the end of the issue. The next up is in Fantastic Four number 40. So that is the next chapter of this Reckoning War crossover.
Right.
I thought I just as of note, we want to mention that the alien race that and actually there's some hints here of some of the storylines that's in some of the storylines that were in the Eternals movie. You know, just a couple of hints here and there that were explored in the Eternals movie. I also wanted to mention that the alien race that's referenced here as being the behind the reckoning are not. This is not their first appearance in the Marvel universe. This actually goes back to issues of one of the earlier runs of the Silver Surfer, and even before that, going into 2 issues of Journey into Mystery. Oh, okay. So we're going way back to the beginning of the Marvel universe for, you know, that Dan Slott has kind of been mining the depths of the archives of the Marvel universe to come up with this story. Right. So it's not a surprise. Slott is one of the writers that's definitely steeped in Marvel history and lore.
Right, as we've said before, Slott is definitely down for the long con, and like I said, this is some of the stuff he's using. His stuff he's set up from years ago. I don't know if he even knew whether he was going to even get back to it, because who knew at the point where he was writing some of the stuff that he was ever going to get the right Fantastic Four.
Right, you know? And there's some interesting cameos in this issue too, because we get a tease of a group of new warriors.
Yes.
We get the TVA of all people, and we get, you know, as Roddykat mentioned, we get Jack of Hearts, who has reappeared over in the pages of the new She-Hulk series.
And in fact, so like you just said, Slott was mining a lot of stuff, including stuff from his own books, because like I mentioned earlier, his She-Hulk run from 2005 is a direct reference. Especially with the character, the TVA characters that come up, or at least one of the TVA characters that shows up. His Silver Surfer run, because the Silver Surfer shows up, and a couple of characters from that run shows up in also. And what am I missing? Something else. Oh, Dr. Doom also shows up, and he's gonna also have a hand in it, and he's kind of goes off and does his thing as Victorious is defending Latveria, because he figures out the same thing that pretty much Reed and them does, that, you know, it's like, well, we know where this has come from, and so he's clearly going to get himself involved.
Definitely.
So yeah, like
I mean, Doom has not been a stranger to Slott's run in Fantastic Four, so it's no surprise that Doom would be actively involved in something like this.
True. So now he's basically saving the world in Fantastic, or hoping to save the world in Fantastic Four, and possibly Iron Man.
Right.
If you're keeping score. But yeah, like I said, this is a whole lot that happens in this issue, and I'm still kind of looking forward to the goings on of this Reckoning War thing.
Oh, I actually just pulled up I pulled up issue number 3 of the She-Hulk Dan Slott series that's referenced here, and it immediately, you know, just a couple of flips through the pages shows you that the TVA is involved. And I'm like, oh,
yeah.
So, you know, like Roddykat said, Slott is definitely mining a lot of his own work here, but you know, but it's all based in very deeply in Marvel lore.
Right. So, and if you're playing along with us and reading this, and if you're curious about this, in my notes, I do have links to a character that, well, one of the TVA characters that Slott created in that She-Hulk run, and a link to the wiki of that particular article that or the particular issue that 8-70 is talking about. So, and you can find it on Marvel Unlimited. Not a plug, just saying. We're not getting any money from Marvel or anybody from that, but we're just saying it's a good resource.
Definitely.
That being said, I don't know if we got anything else to talk about on this one, because like I said,
I think we can move on.
Yeah, it's a big joint. Watch your Armor Wars. Who figured? But moving right along, we said, well, actually, I don't know if I think this was it.
I don't think we did.
Yeah, we didn't say
What's
anything
next?
for this one. Let's see what you ready. Shang-Chi?
Sure.
Okay.
All righty. Shang-Chi number 8 is written by Jean Luen Yang with art by DK Ruan. We should note that this is DK Ruan's last
Yes.
issue of art on this book, as we're going to get a new art team incoming, and there's nothing wrong. There's no missed deadlines. They're literally just transitioning art teams as of the end of this issue. Colors on this issue are by Triona Farrell, and letters are by VC's Travis Lanham. Give me a sec, and I will, unless you have your notes up and ready.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So, I'm looking at your notes. So basically, Shang-Chi's grandfather attacks the 5 weapons, and at the beginning we think we see a betrayal by his sister, by Shang-Chi's sister, but that was apparently a ruse that ends up coming out later on in the issue.
Yeah. I was about to say, to quote the folks at Kim's Convenience, sneak attack.
Yes. Yes. Nice. Oh, I'm so happy you're watching that. Yes. Oh, I'm so happy you're watching that.
Sneak attack.
Yes. That's Mrs. Kim's sneak attack. Yes. Dang, how many episodes? We'll talk about that later.
No, like the first episode, it's in. I think it's definitely in the first 6 episodes,
right?
Or 7 episodes. You get like a bunch of sneak attack references.
This is true. Yeah, and yes, and the other thing that we've also referenced. But yeah, oh man, y'all should watch Kim's Convenience. It's a great show. Anyway, and then from that attack, we cut to, for some strange reason, Shang-Chi's mom decided that this was the time to finish the story that she started last issue, which not necessarily directly mirrors what's the MCU version, but kind of close.
It's an adaptation of the MCU. It's kind of an adaptation of the MCU origin to try to refit that in and retroactively fit that in. This is the definition of a retcon into Shang-Chi's history here. And as Roddykat said, it was kind of a weird thing to have Shang-Chi's mother continue the story, but it was important because the climax of the issue involves a twist on what we saw in the MCU, because the parents of basically Shang-Chi's grandfather come back with a vengeance, as Roddykat mentioned earlier.
Right, and this is his, which is also kind of weird because it's his mom's dad,
right,
who is there. So I'm surprised she didn't. Well, I guess. Well, and the story that she talks about, explains the confrontation between her dad and Zinzu. Initially, and apparently Shang-Chi had a slight bit of a thing to deal with that, and how we see Shang-Chi's mother get to where she was before he found her, and that's pretty much a crux of it. Also, is a weird Iron Fist kind of thing, because as some folks may or not know, Iron Fist's abilities are slightly mystical in nature. He also has access to a gate that takes him to the dimension where his powers go from. Pretty much the same thing happens here, as we also saw in in a way in the Shang-Chi movie, but also we found out that another similar a gate had existed and was used at some point.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, that's another weird Iron Fist kind of potential tie.
Right, and it's interesting that they would use a similar motif, a similar means of access. It obviously, as Roddykat mentioned, and makes a very strong point, that it's all very similar, and we presume that it's on purpose, that it's not just that they're not just biting, that they're actually going to be using these similarities as part of a basis of a story, or creating some sort of basis for a story in the future.
Right. Right. But we do know it'll probably come back out next issue because of what happens at the end of this.
Right. And whether or not, and it's likely going to have some impact on the new Iron Fist, because the new Iron Fist, at least from the teases that we've gotten so far, is not going to have technically the power of Shula the Dragon.
Right. So, but like I said, time will tell on that front. For now, this is what we got. And I noticed that was mentioned into the Dark Dimension, but as far from what, or excuse me, a Dark Dimension, not the Dark Dimension, but the way it kind of sounded, was like, are you basically saying that she got thrown into the Dark Dimension and ended up in the?
I thought she was thrown into the negative zone.
Exactly, she was. But that's what I'm saying. But could you remember in the story, it was like, I'm going to send you to the Dark Dimension.
Oh no, but they said that the portal went haywire or something like that, and it rerouted.
Right. But so yeah, I guess potentially she or somebody would have been thrown in.
Oh yeah. It says it's connecting to some other dark dimension, not the dark dimension. Yeah.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. I was like, that was a weird. But then again, like it's not they would have known that was a thing, maybe they would have not have known that. So, but that kind of struck me as a thing. I was like, interesting. But yes, as you said, we knew she was thrown into the negative zone. So, either way, that was just something that kind of struck an interest of me. So,
right, it's just that it's an interesting way that they're choosing to adapt the elements in the movie into the from the MCU into the 616.
Right. So that being said, that's Shang-Chi number 8.
Right, and we've talked about this in the news, but they actually confirm it in the teaser for the next issue that Marcus Toe is moving over from Excalibur and joining the art team here on Shang-Chi next as of the next issue.
Right. Yeah, we talked about it like a couple of weeks ago, I think, or or something around that back.
Yeah, I definitely remember that we discussed it, but just as a it's of note that it's in the issue. They actually shout out the incoming artist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and bid for it to the alcohol ones.
Right.
So I guess now we can go to rapid fire.
Sure, I will spin it up.
I ain't got time to move.
All right. Do you want me to go because I have fewer books?
Sure, go for it.
All righty. First up is Batman number 120. It's written by Joshua Williamson with art by Jorge Molina and Mikhail Janin. Colors are by Tomo Mori and letters by Clayton Cowell. So we continue with Bruce Wayne's adventure in Badanija, bad ripoff of countries in Southeast Asia.
Terrible name.
And what's that?
Terrible name, but DC's got a bunch of them.
Oh my gosh, DC's got terrible country names. So what we ultimately find here is that the Batman has had some issues as the result of a villain attack from the previous issue, and is left with just the help of a local police detective who is investigating what Batman came to Badanija to investigate. The ultimate twist in this issue involves both Lex Luthor, who is active in this storyline as the new owner of Batman Incorporated. That's a mild spoiler. And we also find out that the members of Batman Incorporated have possibly switched allegiances in this issue. And or at least as of this, it's confirmed as of this issue. So there is more to that, and there's more. There will be more to that in future issues. This is definitely a kind of a palate cleansing storyline after all of the previous Tinian stuff. So we'll see how well this holds up. The backup story involves maps from the Gotham Academy
Maps Maguchi
book. Yes, Maps Maguchi. So the story, art, and letters are by Carl Kerschel, and colors are by Dave McCaig. So yeah, Maguchi. I thought her name was a little different, or Mizoguchi, I think it is.
It might be Mizuguchi, something like that. Yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah,
I know it's
yeah,
something
yeah.
along those lines.
Right. There is kind of a nice little backup story involving that character. Next up is Daredevil Woman Without Fear, #2. It is written by Chip Zdarsky with art by Rafael De La Torre. Colors are by Federico Blee, and letters are by VC's Clayton Cowles. So we continue on this Devil's Reign tie-in path, and this involves the the quote unquote file on Elektra being given to very let's say acts of vengeance style character that's not normally in Elektra's admittedly smaller villains gallery, but it's definitely in the vein of acts of vengeance where a different villain has taken on the task of taking down this particular hero. And there's some nice exploration and expansion of the Elektra mythos and the lore of her origin and backstory in this issue. But at the end of the issue, it seems that Elektra has been kind of cornered and brought back into the fold of the main Devil's Reign miniseries, or at least the concept of the main Devil's Reign miniseries. So ultimately, it's a nice little turn for Elektra on the main stage. We do get a little bit more exploration of her origins with the hand, because that's basically what this file contains. The information in the file, that's what it pertains to. I would say that if you are interested in the hero, the babyface turn, that is, that, to borrow a wrestling term, the babyface turn for Elektra that she's undertaken in the pages of Zdarsky's run of Daredevil. If you're interested in keeping up with that, I think this is required reading, because the Daredevil book has been on hiatus during Devil's Reign, so this is probably required reading for you. Otherwise, it's probably something that you can skip if you're just interested in reading the main Devil's Reign limited series. Next up is Sabretooth #1. I think Roddykat read this.
Yep.
It's written by Victor Lavalle. Art is by Leonard Kirk. Colors are by Rain Barreto, and letters are by VC's Corey Pettit. So essentially what we find out here is that Sabretooth has not exactly been playing nice while in the pit on Krakoa. And we're not sure exactly what's happening here. It's a little trippy. It's a little on the psychedelic side.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. It sounds like Sabretooth may have made his own personal, well, not his own personal, but made his own personal hell into Krakoa's hell at the same time. Because yeah, we're not, it's weird, because like we definitely presumably see that he's still trapped down there, despite the fact that they say he's escaped. But and yeah, I don't know what to think about this, because it was like, okay, so clearly he's the king of his own personal hell, and at the end of the issue, we see some other people get dropped in here, to which I'm also thinking like, wait, he was the only one that I know of that I remember get dropped down here.
Exactly. I'm like, what did these characters do?
Yeah, and like, when did these? Yeah, exactly. And when did this happen? Because like I said, Sabretooth was way back in Hoxpox when he got dropped down in here, and I know they had wait. And now that I think about it, he's actually not the only one, because if you remember, Nanny and Orphan Maker both got dropped.
Right, which is not referenced here. These are actually different characters, so it's a little, it's a little offbeat, and that is part of the charm and I would guess, slightly confused state that you're left in once you're reading this, because if you're into the concept, then you'll follow through. I don't know if this is exactly required reading, but at the end of the day, if you're curious to see what Sabretooth is up to, take a look at this little miniseries.
And actually, and when does these people get dropped on? Here's the other thing, because like maybe this is like something like maybe this is set from when he actually at a time after he gets dropped, because there's no real sense of time in this thing. So maybe it was right after he got dropped and all of this happened, and who knows? You don't know. Yeah, like I said, it's weird, and yeah, we don't know if anything's going to come out of this of significance, but it's out there.
Right. We don't know if it's just in his mind. We just don't realize what's going on. It's just very out there.
Mm-hmm.
All righty. Next and last for me is 10 Lives of Wolverine #2. It's written by Benjamin Percy with art by Joshua Cassara. Colors are by Frank Martin and letters are by VC's Corey Pettit. So this issue takes us back to the time. I would say it's a mode of time travel. I think, Wolverine's physical body is still on Krakoa, but his mind is being transported through various iterations of his life, various points of his life. Obviously, Wolverine is long lived, so we're going all the way back to like 1900. So, we're going back well over 100 years in the past here, and Wolverine at this point is still a young teenager, kind of a developed teenager at this point. We encounter various points in Wolverine's past here, but with this particular issue focuses on a mission in which Team X, namely Maverick, Sabretooth, and Logan, when they were government operatives, basically undertake a couple of black ops missions. And we also run into a little bit of a flashback with ancestors, that is, of Professor Charles Xavier. I think that is the ultimate crux of the story, is that someone is going after Xavier in the past, and Wolverine is there to stop it. But it's not clear as of yet how all of that is going to fit together. We're still only 3 issues in, because we've gotten the 2 #1 issues of the kind of parallel series running together, and this is the 3rd issue. So we're not going to see the story really congeal and come together until probably a couple more issues in, because that will put us at the rough halfway point, and we'll see where we are.
Have you read the Infinite comic of this?
I have not.
Okay. Because I kind of skimmed it, and it looks like it was. I don't know if I didn't read. Having not read the first issue of this, I don't know if it's like the same stuff or is it like a kind of precursor to that. But it seemed to kind of set up what's going on in here to a certain extent, because we know Jean Grey's involved and going through his mind.
Oh, the life of Wolverine. I didn't even realize that was there. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking that this that may be a companion to this, and possibly setting up this whole X Lives of this thing. I'm not sure. Like I only skimmed it, and I haven't been reading this.
Got it.
So that might be something for folks who are interested in this to also check out if you are on Marvel Unlimited. Again, not a plug, and it might be one of the free ones. I'm not sure if it is actually, because I know they do have some free Infinity comics.
Interesting. All right, and that's it for me.
All right, then that being the case, I'll do mine. Starting off with Spider-Woman #19. Pink. There we go. So yeah. Oh, actually, hold on for a second. I'll. Actually, that's not the one. But I'll come back to it. So Spider-Woman #19, actually, we'll go ahead and do that. Written by Carla Pacheco, art by Perry Perez, color artist Frank Darmada, and letters by VC Travis Lanham. So basically, and I don't know if Agent 7 is going to read this or not, but as my notes say, a Secret Invasion staple is somehow back. We still don't know how they're back. In the pages of this book, but apparently they've been around. And so this character, Queen Ferengi and Jessica get into a big knockdown, drag down fight over, and this is also apparently a Devil's Reign tie-in, as it says at the top of the book, because of that. And over trying to save, Jessica's trying to save her son Jerry, who apparently is kind of sort of taking care of himself in part of this book. But all that kind of gets dealt with and introduces what seems to be a cadre of supervillains waiting in the wings, including one that has been seen in previous, looks like one that's been seen in previous volumes of Spider-Woman. They call themselves the Anti-Iraq 9, which boom, 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 so there is that. But I've been enjoying the Spider-Woman book especially because of some of the art and some of the choices in art and lettering. So it's good to check out. Next book is Savage Spider-Man number 1. I have no idea why I'm reading this. I'm just going to go ahead and say that right now.
I couldn't bring myself to do it.
Yeah, you're probably better off. So for those that did not know, there was a book. Actually, let me go ahead and say the creative team real quick. Writer Joe Kelly, pencils by Geraldo Sandoval, inks by Geraldo Sandoval and Victor Nava, colors by Chris Sotomayor, and letters by I'm assuming VC's Travis Lanham, which I forgot to put the VC part on here. So this is the sequel to Nonstop Spider-Man, which was already kind of a bonkers book in itself. And at the end of that miniseries, it was Zemo running around, that's probably a bad choice of words, but regardless, getting brain matter with this drug that was taking smarts from smart people and siphoning it off somewhere else. And then there was this other group that ended up coming into the fold that was against Zemo. But near the end of that, Spidey, I think he ended up getting stabbed or something by Zemo and interacting with said drugs, and it turned him into another spider creature, because that hasn't happened before in Spider-Man's life. And this is the continuation of that, where I think they got dropped on an island, and Zemo's kind of running from his life for running from these other creatures or creatures, and the Savage Spider-Man is also running around with a lot of Hulk-like tendencies. I don't know, whatever the case may be, but this whole thing starts off bonkers. I don't know if I'm going to continue to read this thing. The Mad Thinker is in there some kind of way. It's just a whole weird ass book, and slightly jarring to read, honestly. So not jarring as in a bad way, just like, this is weird and crazy. But it's out there for folks who wondered where the continuation of that Nonstop Spider-Man thing went to. Let's see. Next up, Black Panther Legends number 3 of 4, apparently. Which I need to put that on the notes. And the creative team is writer Tochi Onibuchi, art by Fran Galan, color artist Ian Herring, and letters by VC's Joe Sabino. So this is kind of a retelling of the Black Panther history, and says might be a slight retcon of some things, but I'm not entirely sure. Or as I say in my notes, a revision of events, because And it's definitely a retcon. Because after the events of last issue, where we see T'Challa's first meeting with Aurora, aka Storm, he heads back to Wakanda to enter the tournament that determines who's going to be the Black Panther, going up against his uncle. But he has to sneak back in because there's some people who don't want him there. One of which being his half brother, aka Hunter, aka the White Wolf. So there's some shenanigans there because of the fact of their dad's death. But as what ends up happening after a slight revision, T'Challa ends up winning the tournament at the end of this issue. There is a warrior that shows up here, a lady warrior that shows up in here who pretty much sweeps everybody she goes up against. It's almost like a Dragon Ball tournament, who just pretty much sweeps through everybody until she gets to T'Challa, who's in disguise, and then he beats her. They don't necessarily give this person a name. I'm going to assume this is a person who's going to end up being Adora at some point. Maybe even one we know, but it doesn't seem recognizable at this point. But even if they don't, that person needs a series, and they didn't even say that. They just came in and started just knocking folks out. So, but we'll possibly maybe see who that is if they choose to bring that up in the next issue. Let's see, but it's an interesting read if you are interested in a little bit of back story on the Black Panther. Like I said, it's kind of maybe a slight retcon / revision to the history. Let's see. Next up, The Thing number 4 of 6. As I pull up, bing, 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 bong, bong, bong. Writer Walter Mosley. Yes, that writer was Mosley of Devil in a Blue Dress and a bunch of other things fame. Art by Tom Riley. Color artist Jody Belair. Letters by BC's Joe Sabino. So yeah. Ben calls in the Silver Surfer basically to deal with the champion, and somehow he and his then girlfriend, who's this new mystery lady, and this other little kid that's been along for the ride, who's also a mystery, end up being transported to the moon somehow, and they end up fighting off a bunch of, or at least Ben ends up fighting off a bunch of what seems to be an invasion somehow. So this whole thing kind of took a turn some kind of way, but he gets into a fight, gets real hurt badly, and ends up eating a senzu bean, funnily enough, or at least, excuse me, a senzu cube, but then ends up getting back into the fight. And on the other side of this, we see Alicia's new boyfriend, whoever she ends up with, also showing his true colors at the same time at the end of this. And there was a dream that both of them had that may or may not come true, but they really were dreaming of each other. Ben and Alicia was dreaming of each other, so I guess that's going to be how they get back together or something. We don't know, but regardless, this is that thing, and we're kind of getting to the end of this miniseries.
Yeah, I skimmed this issue, and it's comforting to know that Walter Mosley's not trying to fit this into retroactively any particular era of the FF, just knowing that this is a story that has a general time in which it probably would occur.
Right.
So, we're not trying to fit everything in. He's definitely not trying to retroactively tie it into like the events of a particular set of issues.
Right. And it doesn't seem like this is going to be, like we've said in the past, like, yeah, sometimes they bring up some of this stuff because they're going to set up something that's going to come along in the future, or to go into something else. I don't think this is one of those cases, but who knows?
I concur.
Yeah. So next up is the official Image timeline, which is a one-shot. We kind of talked about this in the news like last week or so. And there's really actually there probably is it says Jim Valentino, because I think he's the one who's given the timeline of it, but I know there's other people involved in this outside of him. but I don't have that information, and I didn't get it from because I just kind of skimmed this. But basically, I will say that this is as this name implies, even straight up says, is the official timeline of Image Comics. Not of their books, just of the company itself. So you see, well, here's when this book, here's when these people got together, and here's the meeting of these people, and here's some stuff that happened that's involved in the creation or or what ends up happening to Image Comics, and a bunch of comic book, with a little like a timeline on the side and a bunch of images in the middle of the book, from I guess around the time. Like I said, I kind of just skimmed it, so I didn't necessarily read the whole thing. But if anyone is interested in the timeline of Image Comics and doesn't necessarily know about it and didn't see that documentary on the creation of Image Comics, this is probably a good resource to check that out. It's like I think I've seen inside of this book. It was like, yeah, there's some information here that was not widely known, like, and it's not really from what I saw from the intro page. It's like, yeah, this is not like, hey, this is glowing about, tooting our own horn about Image. Just like, this is just straight up what happened with the company and everything that happened with it, and some dealings that happening in and or around it, and the people involved with the company and the books, and that happen to come out from it, that kind of stuff. So like I said, it's kind of interesting. I'll check out the rest of it later on, but it's out there for folks. Next up is Star Trek: The Mirror War #4 of 8. And the writers of this are Scott and David Tipton, art by Gavin Smith, colors by Charlie Kirchhoff, and letters by Neil Iwatake. So in the beginning, we get a holodeck sequence that feels reminiscent of Driver 76, but it's Picard Driver 73. But apparently he gets ambushed by somebody trying to take him out. Excuse me, Mirror Picard. I definitely have to keep, because it's all being set in the mirror universe. So let me just go ahead and say that right off the bat before I keep going. And there's this whole plot where Picard and the Enterprise are trying to basically, I guess, take over the Terran Empire, or at least build up the Terran Empire from the status it is now by this one big plot that he's got cooked up with the crew. And there's some shenanigans and skullduggery from the crew, because this is what happens in the mirror timeline. But yeah, so Mirror Geordi's dealing with some stuff. The Mirror Worf kind of attacks the Enterprise, but gets intercepted by Ben Sisko, and then who kind of does a little strafing run that allows the Enterprise to get away, even though they're just kind of on the side, not really taking anybody's side except for being agents of chaos at this point. The slingshot maneuver gets referenced and done, but there's no time travel involved. That gets the Enterprise to where they need to be, and the takeover of said place that they're trying to get to, which I guess is setting up the rest of what Picard's plan is going to be. Which I guess we'll find out. We'll get more on in the next issues. But basically, they took over this place that builds ships, and being the Terran Empire, being on the losing side of the universe, this is going to go some way to build themselves up. Specifically with Picard kind of taking over, it looks like. But we'll see if that actually happens. And the last book that I have, Star Wars Crimson Reign #2, which I believe was labeled as #1 in our thing, which I may have to go in and change. But this is 2 of 5, and the creative team is writer Charles Soule, art by Stephen Cummings, inks by Victor Olazaba, colors by Guru EFX, and letters by VC's Travis Lanham. So the couple of things that happens in this issue is that Kira basically almost MCU style says, "Hey, there's a big three of assassins." As in other words, this is why assassins do the things they do, and she kind of breaks down what that is. But then the book kind of goes into two separate missions with two separate assassins. One being Ochi, Ochi of I can't remember what of whatever, and also Deathstick. And I'm not sure if we knew this or not, but Deathstick may be from Dathomir, which is where Mother Tazin and Ventress Ventress is from. But I don't really get too far into that. And also a little bit more on Kira's machinations on dealing with these assassins, because she's, I don't want to say manipulator, but she's kind of using folks to get what she wants, because that's the kind of stuff that she does. And this book is also pretty much, I guess, kind of sort of chronicling the rise and fall of the Crimson Dawn during the course of this miniseries. So I assume at the end of this miniseries, we're going to get how the Crimson Rage kind of dies out, because obviously in the bigger Star Wars canon, they're not necessarily have been around in the movies. Outside of like Solo kind of bringing them up and a couple other places of late. But so that's pretty much continuing that whole story. I did read one more book, but I don't have it on here, and that was that whole Monkey Prince book from DC. I kind of skimmed through that. I don't know, did you read that, Agent 70?
Just a quick skim, because I missed out on the previous iterations or the previous appearances of the character, so I can't say I was comfortable reading this all the way through in detail, but this does in fact serve as a true origin for the character. So
wait, so this character's been in I thought this was a new character.
It is a new character, but he's appeared, I believe, in the I want to say in the Asian History Month tribute.
Ah, gotcha.
And they had, and I wanted to go back and reread that before reading this.
Sure.
I mean, this is obviously the origin, so this is meant to be, as a #1 issue, is meant to be something for anyone to be able to pick up and read. But I did want to go back and read that first appearance again. But I did, in fact, skim this. I thought it was okay.
Yeah, it was all right. I was like I said, yeah, like you said, this is the origin to the character, and sadly, of course, with any new book, there has to be an appearance by someone of note. So Batman and Damian actually shows up in this issue, near the end of this, and has some tie to the origins of this character, as it were. But yeah, like I said, and I know it's written by Gene Yuen Yang. I can't remember who's doing the art on this because I didn't write that stuff down.
I want to say it's Bernard Chang.
Okay, it's probably right. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it's Bernard Chang.
Let me look that. I'm actually was in the process of looking it up. Pencils by Bernard Chang, inks by Bernard Chang, colors by Sebastian Cheng. Yeah, that's what I'm seeing off of here. But I'm not getting in front of the book, so there's some other people I'm missing, I'm sure. But yeah, so that's out there if you are interested. And yeah, the Monkey Prince is, if you didn't know, is a take on the Monkey King, and some another version of that you would know as Goku, but not.
Right.
But this is off the original Journey to the West character, presumably, as opposed to that version of them. So yeah, this is basically the origin in the DC universe.
Yeah, and you're probably not gonna get a Kamehameha.
You're definitely not gonna get to. Yeah. So yeah, so that's that. And like I just haven't said, yeah, it was seemed all right. I don't know if I'm gonna keep up with it, but I was curious about it. And that, folks, is that. So, Kliqs of the week.
Kliqs of the week.
We didn't get anything from our other host, other absent host, because so it is on us.
Yeah, it was kind of a weird. It's kind of a weird week reading wise, because as you could tell, our conversation prior to this point has been dominated by this week's episode of the Mandalorian. I mean, the Book of Boba Fett.
Nice.
So there's some good books out this week, but definitely we remarked on this before the show that the last several weeks have been filled to the brim with new books, and this week is a bit of a step back, a bit of I guess a reload. So I'm actually just flipping through that Image Timeline book now, and it's interesting to see all the covers that I remember seeing on the stands and all the covers that are sitting in my collection gathering dust because they've never been reread. So
yeah, like I said, it is definitely an interesting look through if you are interested in the in the history of Image Comics. Like if you're out there reading Image Comics and you did not know where they came from or what they came from.
Yeah, where they've been since.
Exactly. It kind of goes through all of that.
So many crossovers with DC and Marvel.
Yeah, I noticed that. Like I said, I didn't get to actually finish that, so I don't know where it ends. I presume it ends up in the last year.
There's images of the toys they've had as well, so it's interesting. So it's kind of a nostalgic blast from the past here, and photographs of the creators. So I'm gonna take a look at that again more closely.
Yeah, same. It actually makes me want to go watch that documentary, The Image Revolution.
I don't think I've ever watched that. I'm gonna have to take a look for that. Is that streaming?
Probably, but I'm not sure where at this point. I had to look it up.
Okay.
I want to see if it's
alrighty
on channel or something. But nevertheless, while I'm looking that up, you got your Kliq?
I have a couple of candidates. I would say that for kind of an out there storyline that doesn't have its basis in anything modern, as it were. The Fantastic Four Reckoning War Alpha number 1 was a pretty strong opening shot for that story. I actually appreciated the loops that Jean Luen Yang jumped through in Shang-Chi number 8 to kind of tie and adapt the movie Shang-Chi origin into the comic book Shang-Chi origin. And believe it or not, 10 Lives of Wolverine number 2 wasn't that bad.
Okay.
And the Daredevil Woman Without Fear wasn't bad either this week. And Amazing Spider-Man number 88. What's nice about this is that there's books that have redeeming qualities, but they don't necessarily rise to easy Kliq of the week picks.
Right.
That's the symptom. Those are the symptoms I'm having this week for choosing a Kliq of the week, because Amazing Spider-Man number 88, it was nice to see Ben Reilly show his true colors shining through. Shout out to Cyndi Lauper and who wrote that song originally? Was that Prince? Are you muted?
Probably, yeah, I was. Probably, but I don't remember.
Yeah, to the Googles. But in any event, I'm still thinking. How about you?
Yeah, I kind of agree with what you said. What you said with the week's content. Definitely. Actually, what did I have? Shang-Chi was definitely a pick. Definitely Fantastic Four Reckoning War. Actually, you know what? I'm just gonna go ahead and say Fantastic Four Reckoning War Alpha number 1, because one is a lot that it sets up, and it's a lot that I'm very curious to see how it plays out. I am still rather curious to see how it plays out, because anytime we see one of these events kind of come up, there's like, is it going to be interesting enough for us to come back to for the rest of it or for, say, another issue. This one seems kind of interesting, especially with, like I said, the amount of stuff that Slott and crew puts in here from way back. You know, there's so I was like, I want to see how he juggles this. And we know Slott can do it because he's done it before. Like he's done it in Spidey. He's done it with with other books he's done. So as I think we talked before the show, Slott doesn't get a whole lot of credit and sometimes gets
flack
rated for it. Yeah, it gets flack for his handling of things. But I'm like, no, it's a lot of times it pays out more than it doesn't.
Yeah. Correct. I was about to say correction of what I said earlier. True Colors is not an original. It was not a Prince song. I'm thinking of something else.
Sure.
But
go ahead.
No, but in any event, I'm just correcting myself. I had to Google that and make sure. It's actually one of the only songs on her debut album that was not partially written by Cyndi Lauper. So shout out to Cyndi Lauper for being a songwriter. It's actually her second album.
Right.
All right. I'm tempted to choose Reckoning War Alpha Number One as well because I thought it was strong. Mm-hmm. You know what? I think I'm going to go with that because I think of the group of issues that I talked about, I think that was probably the strongest. So I'm going to concur and say Fantastic Four Reckoning War Alpha Number One is also my Kliq of the week this week.
Alrighty. And there we have it, folks. Kliqs of the week. Catch it. And with that, we are going to move over into... There was something else I was going to say, but I totally forgot what it was, so it doesn't matter. We're going to go over into the news.
But first, an ad read.
Oh, yeah.
Our first ad read of the night is for Blue Apron's meal delivery service. Blue Apron. Fresh ingredients and incredible recipes delivered weekly to your door. Skip the grocery store and make incredible meals at home with Blue Apron, always shipped free right to your home. And now the listeners of the Comic Book Chronicles can get $30 off your first Blue Apron order. To place your first order with $30 off and to help keep our show free for you, go to our network website at cspn.us. That's cspn.us. Then click on the Keep Our Podcasts free link at the top of the page. From there, scroll down to the Blue Apron link and sign up for your first order. Blue Apron through cspn.us. Do it today.
And now the news.
What's that? Yes, and now we get into the news.
And now, before we even get into the news, I do remember what I was going to say. So the Image Revolution documentary from 2013 is out there streaming. Unfortunately, well, you can rent it also on the various places you rent this stuff. But you can stream it on the Roku channel, Tubi, Pluto TV, and VRV. But unfortunately, all with ads.
So you can deal with ads. We grew up with them.
Yeah, this is true. This is true. But if you want to see the documentary on Image, that would be the one to check out. Now then, we're going to go into the cinematic news like we tend to do about this time with Marvel releases a Power, not a Power Stone. That reminds me of that old Dreamcast game. Anyway, Marvel released their Power Stone timeline that gives the first official guide to the cosmic artifacts Marvel's cinematic universe journey, and a better understanding of the Infinity Stones as a group. The new graphic outlines the history of the Purple Power Stone, highlighting some of its most pivotal moments and changes in ownership. And this article kind of goes on from there with the chronological order. So yeah, so there's a chronological order of where the Infinity Stones come in out of in the MCU. And you can check it out in the article in the show notes, or that or this handy caption picture that you're seeing on screen. So there. Next up.
All right, so this is a spoiler for the Eternals MCU movie. So if you have not yet watched Eternals, just cover your ears. I'm going to ring the spoiler bell real quick. So, despite in the Eternals movie, the Deviants' power stealing abilities taking the Eternals by surprise, it actually came into play long before the events of the movie. So, um, let's see here. In the Eternals webcomics, apparently, Druig and Makari speak of a deviant battle way back during the 11th century. That sounds familiar to the uh, uh, whatchamacallit, to the power stealing events in the Eternals movie.
Yeah, essentially, which I didn't know about that either. So that's
Yeah, I'm skimming the article. Like, I don't remember this. Okay,
right. Yeah,
because
so
I didn't read the webcomic. So
yeah, I didn't even know there was a webcomic. So there was that. I knew there was some stuff on YouTube that they had up, but those were like little side story things. I don't know, or maybe maybe that's one of the ones they were talking about, but I don't remember. Regardless, so yeah, apparently there was something that took place before the events of the Eternals movie. That actually plays into the movie. Uh, Significantly, because yeah, if you think about it for a second, like yeah, you kind of wonder how how the deviants got to that point before what happens in the movie, what we kind of find out in the movie. And there you go. So.
All right, next up, you got next.
All right. Yeah, I'm glad I remembered to do this. Aaron Moorhead, one half of the directing duo that worked on in episodes of Moon Knight, shared how the previous horror films he's worked on have impacted the upcoming Disney Plus series. "Quote unquote, the phone, the phone isn't ringing to go do 2.5 Men," Moorhead said. It's stuff that's kind of like what we do already. Archive 81 definitely shares DNA with their previous films, The Endless and Resolution. You'll see the same with Moon Knight, according to them. So the films Moorhead referenced were a pair of horror movies that exist within the same cinematic universe, feature a video that leads their protagonists down ominous path. And this kind of goes into those movies. So apparently, yeah, this person who on those those movies is putting some of that same stuff in Moon Knight that we will see coming next month. Next up.
All right, in some money news, as reported by Variety, Spider-Man No Way Home added another 11 million to its domestic total and surpassed 735 million at the North American box office. It still remains the fourth largest grossing domestic release in history and is currently 25 million away from passing Avatar's 760 million for third place. No Way Home is may very well pass Avatar at the domestic box office, but still has a long way to go to surpass Avatar's top spot globally at $2.8 billion, which is only because they re-released Avatar after Endgame knocked it off its perch. So.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, Spidey done some numbers. Next up, though, I guess we could have mentioned this when we were talking about Book of Boba Fett, but Star Wars recast Luke Skywalker actor for the Book of Boba Fett. So yeah, when Luke showed up in the Book of Boba Fett, it was not the same CG'd actor that we saw at the end of Mandalorian season 2. In fact, apparently, from what I've seen in other places, they hired some dude that did a deep fake of Luke, which would explain why it looks a little bit different from when Luke showed up at the as the Mandalorian in the Mandalorian season 2. So apparently, this actor, just say his name, Graham Hamilton. Took on the role of Luke's motion capture character, along with, like I said, the deep fake technology that whoever this person they hired used to make up the composite. So Yeah, that's why Luke looks a little bit different and probably a little bit better and closer than what he did in the Mandalorian season 2. There you go. Next.
Next up, the Guardians of the Galaxy director James Gunn has spoken in the past about how the third Guardians film will likely be the final movie featuring the current team in place. So it seems like in an interview with Deadline, Gunn revealed that Guardians 3 will be a proper send off for both him as director and the team. Quote, "This is the end for us. This is the last time people will see this team of Guardians. I just want to be true to the characters, and I want to be true to the story, and I want to give people the wrap up that they deserve for the story," Gunn said. "So this is always a little bit scary. I'm doing my best," he said. So it doesn't mean that we're going to never see these characters again, but we don't know. We'll see what happens when this movie comes out.
Right. Also, if he was trying to be true to the character, he would have done better with Mantis. Anyway, speaking of James Gunn offers an update on Peacemaker season 2 and his other Suicide Squad spinoff stuff. So yeah, in a recent interview with Deadline's Hero Nation podcast, Gunn was asked about the possibility of a second season, and he said there's a good chance of that. The show is doing extraordinarily well, and we're excited. We all like doing it. We just need to cross some T's and dot some I's, which is basically me. So basically, this article says that it sounds like Peacemaker's story could continue into a second season. But that's not the only. And we already know that Gunn's doing a couple of other side projects that this article is talking about, and it says here that Gunn said that we're working on something else now, another TV show that's connected to that universe, which I think we may have talked about another article that is also mentioned as much, but we still don't know that much about it. So there you go. Next.
All right, so in the 5th episode of DC's Peacemaker, so this is last week's episode. Mm-hmm. So we get the appearance of Charlie the gorilla, who is among the beings possessed by a butterfly. So Charlie the gorilla does meet its end, but in the episode, but it is actually an established ape character in DC lore, just like Gorilla Grodd or the Ultra Humanite. So Charlie the Gorilla first appears on the cover of 1966's Star Spangled War Stories number 126, and I mean, this is tenuous at best, because at the end of the day, it's not officially confirmed that Peacemaker's Charlie the Gorilla is a direct reference to the comic counterpart.
Right, but it's sure. I mean, if there's a tie, I'm just more curious about where the heck these butterflies are coming from, because I don't think we still yet have come to find out whether there's a comic reason for it, for them. So yeah, like I know look. I thought about Ultra Humanite and Gorilla Grodd also, but we also know that neither one of them have any beings inside of them. So, it is what it is. Anyway, regardless, next up, Naomi director Demain Davis promises standoffs to come in the CW series, which I guess this is about the time that I should say yes. I have still been watching Naomi. Still have not read the miniseries. It is still kind of CW, and it is still more true with this last episode that has come out this week. Not saying it's a bad show. Like I said, I just can't tie the comic connection to the. I mean, obviously we know this is a comic character, but I mean the comic part of it to the show, what they're taking into the show. So anyway, director and producer Demain Davis is we're not going to go through all of that. Basically, yeah. So basically, this is an interview with Demain Davis in his career. So if you want to, if you're curious about that, but it also goes into how they got some connected to the Naomi series, and also going into some stuff that not necessarily going into, but kind of hinting around some stuff that is coming up, including potential confrontations therein. I can't say that. I know there's an article that was floating around asking whether this show is in the Prime Arrowverse show, and I'm thinking not, because they have directly said in the show that this is actually we don't actually. I take that back. The character in the show, and this may be comic thing, because like I hadn't read it, comes from Earth 29. That doesn't necessarily say where the show is taking place, but just that the character came from Earth 29 in the show. And there's some things about that in it. Like I said, I meant to ask Tim, because I think Tim probably is the one who read that miniseries, and I should ask him about it if he's watching the show. But regardless, like I said, that doesn't necessarily mean whether the place where the show is actually taking place is the Arrowverse, but they seem to be taking it or at least by accounts from the show star, it's kind of not in the Arrowverse at this point. Probably will be at some point, but not at this point. We'll see. Regardless, like I said, you could check out the article to see what the director says about about what's going to happen in the show, or hinting around what might be happening in the show at some point. Next up,
Donald Faison, who was cast as Professor Utonium in the CW's Powerpuff pilot, is about to pop over to another superhero show on the CW network. Entertainment Weekly can exclusively reveal that the Scrubs and Clueless actor will appear in the season 7 finale of DC's Legends of Tomorrow, airing March 2nd, as an unnamed mystery character seeking, quote, fame, fortune, and glory, unquote. While the character's name is being kept under wraps for now, the producers hope this won't be a one-off cameo, and that Faison will return if the CW greenlights an 8th season. I will forever remember Donald Faison not as any of those aforementioned characters, but as running back P.D. Jones, the running back P.D. Jones.
Wait, where is that from?
Remember the Titans.
Oh, really? Okay. I don't think I remember that.
You don't remember he's the running back that kept fumbling, so they benched him and they put him on defense?
I vaguely remember the Titans, so I don't remember. Actually, I don't even know if I've actually even watched the whole way through. Now that I'm thinking about
sports ball, folks.
Yeah, basically. So the interesting part about this to me is that the whole fame, fortune, and stuff, and I'm thinking, okay, is it Booster Gold?
Yeah, that's I think the implication.
Yeah. So, because I can't think of anybody else that would be outside of like a version of Plastic Man, but that's not even then.
No, especially if they're dealing with time travel, it's almost certainly Booster Gold.
Right. So, but we'll see if we're right about that. You heard it here. You may have heard it here first, folks. Titans cast Vampire Diaries star as season 4 villain. So let's see. Joseph Morgan has officially signed on to portray a villain in the upcoming 4th season of DC's Titan on HBO Max. He's going to have a recurring role as Brother Blood. Okay.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a character from the original Wolfman and Perez run on Teen Titans.
Mm-hmm. And I've seen him come up. He's come up in relation to the Titans or Teen Titans or Teen Titans at some point. In fact, recently as the last few years. Regardless, he's described as an introverted man with a strong intelligence and a hidden darker nature, according to Deadline. Nothing else has been revealed about Morgan's version of the character, but it's worth pointing out that Brother Blood was previously played by Kevin Alejandro in season 2 of Arrow, which, yeah, I guess that's true. In that DC series, Brother Blood served as a supporting antagonist in the present-day storyline under Manu Bennett's Slade Wilson, aka Deathstroke, which I barely remember that. So, sure. There you go. They recast Pietro. Anyway, that's it. Next up.
Next up, we have a trailer for HBO Max's Looney Tunes Cartoons Valentine's Extravaganza Family Special. So you'll see on the video in front of you that a new trailer has been released that is headed to HBO Max. For the show that's going to be headed to HBO Max. The special features beloved characters like Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, and Porky Pig. Plot details are unknown, but for now, Warner Brothers teased a quick synopsis saying in this love-struck episode, Porky's sweet on Petunia, but Daffy's sweet on Porky Sweets. Yikes. Then Bugs comes face to face with an unexpected admirer. These and more romantic misadventures are in store for the Looney Tunes characters. They say you don't want to miss it.
Yes. And it's Looney Tunes Cartoons Valentine's Extravaganza, because Elmer Fudd had to have something to do with this, I guess.
Did I say extravaganza?
Probably.
Yeah, probably. You know how our brains kind of correct those things automatically.
Yeah. But I wanted to make note of that that titling. Anywho, let's see. Nice. The Batman's.
It's one of those times when I'm using that sound effect not for shots fired, but to help out the Elmer Fudd impression.
Exactly. The Batman's full funeral scene has officially been released online thanks to Matt Reeves. So yeah, Matt Reeves uploaded the funeral scene from his upcoming film, The Batman. You can watch it if you want to. I have not, and probably I don't think I need to see anything else until the movie comes out, honestly. But it's out there if you are so inclined. Wait, this says what? I think we already knew this because I think we talked about this last week. Advance tickets go on sale on the 10th of this month, February 10th. So that's in a few short days. And it comes out on March 4th. So there you go. Next.
All right, next up, Stephen Amell has begun training for Heels Season 2, and you can see part of that in a new video that has hit the internets.
So, okay, this is not comic book related, but we know Stephen Amell was Green Arrow. We know this. I'm going to say, as a person who doesn't give a fuck about wrestling, this was actually not a bad show.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm slightly actually curious about the next season, especially with the way it ended up. So this is a Star show. For those who enjoy, and if you're fans of wrestling, you might be interested in this. I think if you're not already watching it, so he actually does a pretty good job. In this. So yeah, check it out if you feel like it. Who knows? And I guess it's also worth noting Michael Waldron, who creator of Loki, is also behind this. So, and co-writer of Doctor Strange. So take that for what it is. Next up.
Next up is you. I did the Stephen Amell.
Oh, okay, good. Sorry. Jujutsu Kaisen gets super significant announcement on February 12th. Okay, that's not cryptic. The official Twitter account for Jujutsu Kaisen anime revealed that in celebration of Jujutsu Kaisen 0 being a blockbuster hit, the film will be getting a thank you stage at Toho Cinema's Hibiya, excuse me. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Regardless, after the screening of the film scheduled to start on February 12th. During the stage, a super significant announcement for Jujutsu Kaisen will be presented. I'm going to assume that's season 2. It's got to be.
Yeah, because I think they've already, or they may be announcing when the movie's going to hit stateside.
That also, yeah, that's probably going to come along with it. But yeah, that's super significant. That's got to. Well, actually, it says here already that it's March 18th.
Okay. Yeah, I was about to say, because I'm pretty sure they announced it, but I wasn't sure. I didn't take a look at the article.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's more than likely the case. They're going to announce season 2.
Mm-hmm. So good, because I'm waiting for it. Now, where's fucking Fire Force season 3? God doggone it. Anyway.
I still haven't gotten through the first 2 episodes of Fire Force, so that's still on the back burner, no pun intended.
Haha. Nice. Next up.
Next up, by our very own Tim Dog 98, an article via comicbook.com. The There is a reboot of the popular 90s animated series SWAT Kats. Now I'm showing my age because I haven't got the bloodiest clue what the hell that is. I mean, seriously.
I do know what it is, but yeah, I rarely watch it.
Where's Karath when I need him? Who? Thank you.
So I had to explain SWAT Kats to a friend of mine who was of the age to watch it, but apparently they were not watching. May not have been watching cartoons or this particular cartoon at the time. So
okay,
yeah,
right. So there's a reboot in the works from the show's creators, Christian and Yvonne Tremblay, who and they're collaborating with the Toons Media Group for SWAT Kats Revolution. The new series is billed as being for kids in the age range of 5 to 11 years old, featuring new characters fighting alongside our heroes, Razor and T-Bone. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, if the name doesn't incite anything, it's basically about these two cats who I guess run SWAT missions in their fighter jet and with their and other stuff. They fight crime not in a future time, but in whatever time this thing is set in. So I remember watching like an episode or two of it, but like I said, this was kind of past my time.
Wait, this was the top animated syndicated show in 1994?
I guess. And it wasn't known for that long, so yeah. But like I said, I remember seeing a couple of episodes of it, but I was like, okay, yeah.
I mean, I was still conscious of what the cartoons were in 1994. Right. I was like early in college, so you know, when you're oversleeping and not going to class, you try to see what's on TV, and sometimes you catch cartoons. You know, I mean, listen, we were Animaniacs devotees,
absolutely,
in the dorms at that time. So, you know, when that stuff came on, forget it.
Right. Oh, I mean, I never really strayed away from comics. It's just like that later batch.
Cartoons. No, specifically cartoons.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
You know?
I never really strayed away from it. It's just like certain stuff, like the later, like Ren and Stimpy stuff. Well, I did watch some Ren and Stimpy stuff a little bit, but like the later stuff that ended up that people like the 90s kids glom on about, I never really got onto.
Right. Like the early 90s stuff, like early Ren and Stimpy, early Beavis and Butthead.
Right.
You know, like you had to have MTV to watch that stuff. So I didn't have cable at the time, so I wasn't into it.
Right, exactly. But the later stuff, like the Arnolds and the Rugrats and stuff.
Yeah, that's a completely different generation.
Exactly. Some of that I didn't really get onto.
Gotcha.
And SWAT Kats was kind of sort of, you know, but yeah, I do remember seeing some of it on Cartoon Network. So. And it's a Hanna-Barbera joint, surprisingly enough. So yeah.
All right, next up for you.
Dungeons and Dragons live action TV series finds a new dungeon master apparently. Not to be confused with the little bald headed dude that's on the animated show from back in the 80s, I'm sure. But let's see. It says the series, which was first confirmed at the start of 2022, had originally been expected to be developed by John Wick writer Derek Kolstad. But now he's out and Rawson Marshall Thurber is in. Deadline reports that Thurber, whose most recent gig saw him write and direct Netflix's hit, hit action romp Red Notice, will write and direct the pilot script as well as executive produce the series.
That's not a good sign because Red Notice put me to sleep.
It didn't put me to sleep, but I just thought it was basic. Yeah, so that's it. But I agree, it's not a good sign. Not a good sign at all. Let's see. When exactly Thurber will film the episode is unknown. It's got some. Oh no, he's already booked to write and direct 2 sequels to Red Notice, which Netflix plans to shoot back to back. So we don't know when Dungeons and Dragons will go to start date. Yeah. All right then. Moving right along, and the article kind of goes on to some other D&D related media stuff.
Okay, last but not least in cinematic news, and this would fall to me.
Yep.
Deadline has reported that Jason Momoa has joined Fast and Furious 10. That's F10, the next installment in the Fast and Furious series. Vin Diesel, Tyrese Gibson, Ludacris, Michelle Rodriguez, and Sung Kang are expected to return with Justin Lin on board to direct. Diesel and Lin are producing. Plot details are unknown at this time. The film is set to bow on May 19th, 2023. And, so we're going to replace, one kind of
big muscle dude for another.
big muscle dude of Asian Pacific Islander descent with another. Say bye to The Rock, say hello to Jason Momoa.
But two things. One, depending on where you read this, he's still in talks for it. So this is, I'm not sure if this has been completely confirmed, or at least at the time that this article came out, which was a few days ago, last month. And there was, I don't know if this article goes into it, and it does not, that he may be playing the villain.
Right.
Villain role in this, but we don't know. And I like how it says plot details are unknown at this time. Guess what, folks? The plot details of Fast and Furious, even when
are unnecessary.
Are still unknown and unnecessary.
I saw a meme that a buddy of mine put up that had that had Vin Diesel's face on it was I'm sorry, it was Vin Diesel driving a Charger, a souped up Charger, but the Charger was in the place of the Batmobile from the Justice League movie, and Aquaman with Jason Momoa is holding on and saying like, yeah. I started laughing. It was funny.
Which is kind of funny now that I think about it, because I think the Batman, Robert Pattinson's Matt Reeves, the Batman, is also driving a Charger, kind of. So they could have done that also.
That's funny. That's so funny.
But yeah, so that's that. Fast and Furious still trudges along. Yeah, we're still going to be along for the ride.
Oh my gosh. I was about to say, before we transition to comic news, do we have anything for Anime Corner?
No, actually, as I told you before, as I told you before the show, I haven't caught up on the last couple of weeks of the Demon Slayer.
Boo!
Nor actually, now that I think about the last couple of episodes of Samurai Champloo, which I was kind of going back through before I hit My Hero. So
gotcha.
No, I hadn't had the chance to hit up any.
Yeah, thankfully, Roddykat's not that far behind on Demon Slayer. It's only 2 weeks worth. I would say that it's very, very fun. I think this entertainment district arc is rapidly coming to an end, but it's been pretty interesting. I think they're going to split the season into 2 parts again.
Probably.
Because of the pandemic being just wreaking havoc, and wrecking schedules. That's really what I wanted to say.
Sure.
Wreaking havoc and wrecking schedules for all animation studios. Because a lot of this stuff you have to remember is hand-drawn. So they need people to do that. And during the pandemic, they were sending messengers with artwork and whatnot. And it's one thing to be able to work together in a studio. It's another thing to have to do it the way they've had to do it over the last 2 years.
Right. Although I think Demon Slayer is kind of partially CG drawn, I believe.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But your point still stands on a lot of other stuff.
Exactly. There's still a lot of effects that the pandemic has had on the animation process as a whole.
Right.
I would also say that Attack on Titan continues to throw lots of curveballs at everybody. If you have not spoiled yourself yet with how the manga ends, this is definitely full of surprises. I think that, and we've said it before, that these anime are adaptations of the manga or the manga. So they do not necessarily hew that closely with how the manga ends, or with whatever story points that they might hit. So I think it's worth watching the anime just to see how it's executed and see how closely it follows the manga. So that is it for Anime Corner.
Indeed. And now we move over into the comic book news. Aquaman concept art revealed.
I was about to say I was going to play another transition, but it's
sorry.
okay.
I'm sorry. No, go for it. Yeah. Actually, I just thought about something because I would have also done. But anyway, if I had a Batman story, this would have been way perfect. But Aquaman concept art reveals a pair of classic Teen Titans' new looks. So, 2 classic Teen Titans will be joining Jackson Hyde in his new ongoing series, Aquaman. Aquaman, written by Brandon Thomas and Chuck Brown, drawn by Sami Basri, and colored by Adriano Lucas, is the upcoming series that follows Jackson as he adjusts to the pressure of becoming Aquaman, which is the name of the miniseries that he's doing right now, which is going on for him right now, which is leading up to Aquaman, which is the team up with him and Arthur Curry, by the way. The book coincides with DC's celebration of Black History Month and gives a hero an eclectic cast of underwater characters to support him, including Arthur Curry, like I said, Mira, and Jackson's estranged father, Black Manta, who also has a miniseries going on right now, which is about to end, I think, and also being written by Chuck Brown. Hometown, shout out. So yeah, but yeah, so some concept art out there with Jackson Hyde. You can see that right there. There's Tempest, and there's also what's Tula? That's her name. You may know a couple of these characters from Young Justice, so and Titans. Next up,
and this is these are spoilers for the Batman Catwoman special #1 that came out, I think, 2 weeks ago.
I believe so.
This was the John Paul Leon story that he was unable to finish because he unfortunately passed away while he was working on it due to complications from a reoccurrence of cancer. But in this issue, it was revealed, again, spoilers, that at least in the Tom King continuity of Batman in the future, that the daughter of Batman and Catwoman, Helena Wayne, would would at least at some point take on the role of Batman after Damian.
Okay, gotcha. Cool. Next up, and also some sad news. Well, not sorry, that was a. I didn't mean that the way it sounded.
Mm-hmm.
Because that last thing wasn't sad news, but going on what you said about
John Paul Leon, yeah,
exactly. Brian Augustin, longtime DC editor and Batman Gotham by Gaslight writer, dies. After suffering a stroke, according to a Facebook post from his longtime collaborator and friend, writer Mark Waid. Waid disclosed the news of Augustin's death, like I said, on his Facebook page, noting that Augustin's family requested for him to make the announcement. And then this article goes on into the career of Brian Augustin. So condolences to his family and friends.
Yeah, it was. I was shocked to see the name because, it's a name that is, especially if you were reading DC, like a lot of things DC in the 90s, it's a name that you recognize. I remember seeing his name on The Flash with Mark Waid. That's where I remember when they were making Wally West kind of like the prime Flash at that point. In the 90s, Augustin and Waid worked, closely on that Flash series.
Right, and in addition to that, it says here JLA Year One. He did some Justice League, Flash, Wonder Woman, like I said, and that's he's done. Looks like he's had his fingers in a lot over the years. So, but there is that.
Alrighty, next up. McFarlane Toys' The Batman Wave 2 figures have their masks off. So the very first wave of movie toys based on The Batman may already be on shelves at a store near you, but it's time to reveal McFarlane Toys' The Batman Wave 2 figures, and 2 of the 3 new 7-inch figures are variants, with 1 all-new figure in the Penguin. With the first 3 all wore masks, these 3 have them off. Batman, Catwoman, and Riddler specifically. Penguin's identity was never secret, so it does in fact show the transformed face of what's that character? What's the actor's name?
Colin Farrell.
Colin Farrell, thank you.
Yeah. I don't know. That Batman looks
It's a little weird.
Yeah.
It's a little weird.
Like
But the
emo
7-inch
Batman.
scale, I just think is a little too big for these figures. That's just my personal opinion.
Like,
It makes them all look a little too tall.
Right. Right. As if Batman wasn't already emo, we got a emo looking figure here.
It's Cedric Diggory in a Batman costume. That's going to be the joke for a long time.
Wait, I'm not sure if I even know that reference. I don't think I do.
Cedric Diggory is from Harry Potter. That was the character that Pattinson played in Harry Potter.
Oh.
More people obviously know him from, what is it, Twilight?
Twilight, yeah. Is that the one that always was always having bad luck happen to him, or something always happened to him in Harry Potter?
No, he was only in one movie, but he was a talented, handsome dude that gets killed.
Oh,
Spoiler alert for Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire.
Yeah, for a decade-old movie or whatever, and books.
And even older book, right?
Moving right along though. Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League reportedly delayed until 2023. So Rocksteady's next DC game, the aforementioned Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League, may have been delayed. As reported by Bloomberg, the upcoming game has been pushed back a year after initially announcing a 2022 release window. Warner Brothers Games is gearing up several releases this year, including, speaking of, Hogwarts Legacy and Lego Batman, which I thought Hogwarts Legacy also might have got pushed. I was slightly looking forward to, I'm definitely looking forward to the Suicide Squad game whenever it comes out. And that Gotham Knights game that Warner Brothers is also putting out was also, I think it's still slated to come out this year. Not sure. And that Lego Star Wars Skywalker collection or whatever the case may be, I think it's still coming out. And I believe, like I said, I thought that Hogwarts Legacy, which I believe is supposedly like an MMO situation, and I was kind of curious to play, might have got pushed. I might be wrong about that part, but according to this article, it's still saying it's coming out. Might have been pushed to later this year, but I think it still got pushed nonetheless. I'm not sure. But also, I'm still kind of not sure about putting money in Just Kidding's pocket. Gotta say that. But nevertheless, so yeah, the Suicide Squad game looks like it's been pushed. And if that's the case, then hey, you know what? More time for a video game to come out, the less buggy hopefully it shall be. So I as long as it comes out, that's fine. Next up,
Marvel's Avengers video game is back with another Avengers Endgame surprise. Last week, Crystal Dynamics treated fans on Google Stadia, PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, S, and X to the game's first Spider-Man MCU suit since the character's release. Okay.
Yeah, I've been meaning to check that game. I had the game. I don't know. So I think basically they have an in-game shop where they're, just like other games, you can buy costumes for the characters. I don't know if this one. I assume this one's probably not free, or because I know they've given away some stuff for free and some stuff is in the shop for in-game currency or what have you. So not sure which one this one is, but it's there.
And you also get new MCU suits for Hawkeye as well.
Right, I was about to say that because you see that there. And actually, now that I think about it, it says, yeah, get it in the marketplace on February 3rd, which is today which was yesterday as of the start of this
the ending of this recording. Exactly.
Yeah, so there you go, folks. It's out there if you want those. Go check them out. Next up, Spider-Man, Ghost Rider, Wolverine, and the Hulk are back as the Fantastic Four at some point soon. In a press release, Marvel Comics announced Peter David and Alan Robinson would helm a new Fantastic Four series, which probably is going to be from the past, as they tend to do with a lot of Peter David stuff recently. But anyway, that's just me saying that, not the article. But slated to arrive in May, the team will consist of the aforementioned characters, except for Ghost Rider's Danny Ketch, but everybody else is the ones you know. Who named the ones you know? The series will take place shortly after. Here we go. The series will take place shortly after the group's first appearance in 1990's Fantastic Four 347. So it is indeed a new, quote unquote, new old story. The plot synopsis for the series reads, I'm not even going to go into it, but basically they all get together in Vegas and some stuff happens. Which, given that it's an old story and given what happens with Ghost Rider in Vegas soon, I can't help there's going to be a tie, but probably not. Anyway, next up.
So Peter Parker and Mary Jane tie the knot all over again in the upcoming Spider-Man The Wedding Album Gallery Edition and oversized hardcover Gallery Edition. So the hardcover collects not only the original wedding story from 1987, God, 87, but also the version that ran in the Spider-Man newspaper comic, as well as an alternate wedding story. The issues included in the Gallery Edition are Amazing 290 to 292, What If 20 to 21, Amazing Annual 21, Spectacular Annual number 7, Marvel Saga, The Official History of the Marvel Universe number 22, and Not Brand Ech number 6. So the 296-page hardcover will have a trim size of 9 by 13 inches and will be released on August 31st with an MSRP of $44.99.
I've been wanting to get those Spider-Man newspaper collections, but they were kind of pricey. Also, dun 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 dun, tie the knot, tie the knot. If you know your digital underground things. So yeah, I don't know. It's out there if you want this, I guess. I don't know. It's curious that this is actually being out there, but nevertheless, moving right along. Fundraiser to provide students with free copies of Miles Smashes Goal. A fundraiser campaign seeking to provide students with free copies of Art Spiegelman's Miles has more than tripled and nearly quadrupled its $20,000 goal, having made over $77,000 at the time of the writing, which was a few days ago. So if you don't know the story behind this, apparently schools in Tennessee banned this Miles book from its curriculum. Excuse me, Tennessee. Yeah, in Tennessee, I was right. And the news came out recently, so there have been fundraising. There's been a fundraising campaign to basically give out the book for free to students because of that. So if you did not know about the story of this graphic novel, it says it uses postmodern illustrations to tell the story of the Holocaust, with mice as the characters. So, but yeah, and I think what it says, Nirvana Comics, which is a comic book shop based in Knoxville, Tennessee, is the one that launched the GoFundMe campaign. That is apparently doing well. So next up.
Yeah, I can't help but think of the '90s, the early '90s hip hop group Arrested Development every time I hear Tennessee.
Yeah, valid.
Can't help but think of it. Anyway, last but not least this week, Archie and the gang are about to meet their Riverdale counterparts. The worlds of Archie Comics and the CW's Riverdale collide this May thanks to an all-new Archie Meets Riverdale crossover. Written by Daniel Kibblesmith with art by Pat and Tim Kennedy, Bob Smith, Matt Herms, and Jack Morelli. Archie Meets Riverdale number 1 is a one-shot that blends Riverdale with the comic books that inspired the hit CW drama. Let's see here. Any more information? All right, so the on sale date is May 11th. It's a 32-page comic, and it's retails for $3.99.
Sure. And that, folks, as we look at the cover of this here one shot, is the end of the news for the night. And we get one more ad read, please.
Our last ad read of the night, and you know what we read when it's late and we're tired. Keep our podcast free by shopping at Amazon. Visit cspn.us and click the Keep Our Podcast Free link at the top of the page. From there, scroll down and click on the Amazon link to shop. Purchase items from Amazon as you normally would, whether it's books, music, electronics, jewelry, apparel, or Marvel Legends. For every purchase made on Amazon through our link, Amazon sends the CSPN a payment that helps us keep the Comic Book Chronicles podcast free for our listeners at no extra cost to you. Amazon.com through CSPN.us. Do it today.
Actually, I want to revert back to something really, really quick. Before we end up, and this is just something that I noticed just now because there was an article about from CBR saying that hey, Marvel She-Hulk just received a new power 15 years in the making, which is actually true, but at the same time, it's kind of funny because I feel like she's had some version of this quote unquote power. So yeah, in the book Fantastic Four Reckoning War, she ends up talking to the couple of TVA agents that she can see and no one else can. So this article is basically saying that she's well, and even as they said in the book, she's chronically sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, because of her past dealings with the TVA, which I feel kind of funny because like it feels like a version of basically them saying, well, she's breaking the fourth wall in a way, not necessarily directly, but we know that she's done that in the past. She was actually basically Marvel's Deadpool.
Mm-hmm.
In a quite sense. So this new chrono sensitivity, it feels like it's kind of grounding that a little bit, but it could be, you know, I could
Listen, they've given, I was about to say, they've given the Hulk similar powers where he can see ghosts, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just because of the nature of this gamma powers. So yeah, they've played a little fast and loose with the gamma powers that the She-Hulk and Hulk got.
Well, yeah, but this wasn't even. I don't think this was because of Gamma. This was just because, like, hell yeah, the TVA did whatever with her in that old slot book, and therefore he's reused it in this for that. So whether this has come up, and also there was something saying that even from that in this, which we forgot to mention, that apparently Reckoning War is all She-Hulk's fault, according to what they say.
Yeah,
according to the callback
to
her book from the past. So yeah, there's that. So I just wanted to bring that up real quick because I didn't want to bring it up next week. If I'm being honest. Now we're gonna roll this. Oops, I didn't even do that. I'm gonna roll this beautiful beam footage on home by saying thank you each and every one of you fine folks for coming out here tonight. We will be back next week as we tend to do every week about this time. I have been Roddykat. You can find me on at Roddykat on Twitter. You can find me at NewsNoSneed on Twitter. You can find me at CBCaps on Instagram. Agent_70 on Twitter and Instagram. PC_Dirt on Twitter. PopCultureNet on Twitter. PopCultureNetwork.com and his umbrella sites therein. And Tim DOGG98 on Twitter, CB Chron on Twitter, which is the Comic Book Chronicles Twitter account, the Kliq Nation on Twitter, that's the KLIQNATION, all bunched together. Excuse me. But also you can find Tim over at comicbook.com writing his face off. Excuse me. You can find this here podcast on the Coastal Podcast Network. That's CSPN.us.
Do it today.
You can also find this podcast on your podcast personal place of choice, whether it be Google Play, Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the Coastal Podcast Network SoundCloud page. You can find us recording here every Thursday night, unless there's some sort of movie protocol or some holiday or something. Every Thursday night, 9:30-ish p.m. on the channels of the YouTube, youtube.com/TheKliqNation and twitch.tv/Comic Book Chronicles. You know, like and subscribe. Hit them buttons. You know what to do.
Smash them!
Yeah. Please and thank you. But that's it. Yeah. So we are going to get out of here. We will be back next week. Like I said, I don't think there's anything special outside of the fact that the last episode of Book of Boba Fett. And
Yeah, I think so.
Episode of Peacemaker.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's it, though.
I think so too.
Yeah.
No, we don't have any movie protocol movies coming up, at least for the rest of the month. So
yeah, I don't think we have that. Yeah, we don't have anything other outside of that.
Yeah,
Moon Knight's coming out, but that's a show and that's March. So
yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna have opening night for Batman. We'll see.
Yeah, oh yeah, there is that too. Yeah, I don't think that's gonna.
But that's March, so.
Right. Yeah, both of those are March, and yeah, we'll. But like I said, if things change, we'll let you know ahead when it gets closer to the time. That being said, this has been the Comic Book Chronicles. Peace.
Peace. One.
And knowing is half the battle.